My toxic parents are convincing my kids that I'm not their real mom after I literally adopted them years ago to help them escape a terrible living condition. And now I am furious as they try to convince my kids not to tell me about this while also reiterating that I'm not their real mom. And at this point, I'm so pissed off that I'm considering cutting my parents off entirely because this is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. Here's what's currently going on. About 3 years ago, my younger brother lost custody of his 2 daughters. They were 4 years old and 8 years old at the time. And trust me, at the time, the situation was bad. And I don't want to go into all of it, but it involved him being in a really dangerous living situation and some substances being involved. Well, I stepped up, and after a long legal process, I officially adopted both girls. They're now 7 and 11 years old, and I also have a son of my own who's almost 2. Now, my parents were furious with me at first. They thought I was being extreme and that my brother just needed more time to figure things out. We didn't talk for almost 3 months after a really ugly fight. Eventually, they came back around because I had their only grandkids and they wanted to see them. Things seemed okay for a while. My oldest started calling me mom pretty quickly, and my parents clearly didn't love it, but they kept their mouths shut. Then my younger one started doing it once she heard her sister and her baby brother all calling me mom, and that's when it started. My mom corrected her right in front of me. She said, "Sweetie, that's your auntie, not your mother." And I told her, no, actually I am their mom now, and she needs to respect that. She then dropped it, but I found out through our therapist that both my parents have been telling the girls that I'm their aunt and that their real mother is out there and loves them and wants to come back for them. My brother got out about 2 months ago, and from everything I can tell, he's using again. And our therapist and I agreed the kid should not be seeing him right now. Meanwhile, my parents think that if he sees the girls, it will motivate him to get clean. And honestly, I've heard that logic before, but it has never once been true. But then suddenly it got worse. The girls told their therapist that my parents have been asking them if they miss their real mom and if they want to go see daddy, and that my parents told them not to tell me about these conversations. And that last part is what really broke me. Telling my children to keep secrets from me? That's not a difference of opinion. That's a violation of trust, and honestly, it's dangerous. I then called my parents and I told them that if this doesn't stop immediately, I will be restricting access to the kids. My mom then started crying and said I was punishing them for loving their son. And my dad said I was on a power trip and that blood is blood, and I can't erase who these kids really belong to. I said these kids belong to me, legally and in every single way that matters. And if they can't respect that, then they do not get any unsupervised time with them at all. But now things have become so stressful, and honestly, I just don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, I think you're being way too nice to your parents, because I know for a fact if I was in your shoes, I would be cutting them off immediately. This wouldn't even be a conversation. Like, I would just literally say, "Sorry, but you're never gonna be around my kids ever again. You tried to get them to keep secrets from me. That is a hard line in the sand." Like, for me, there would be absolutely no coming back from this. And by the way, who are they to try and be like, "Oh, this is not your real mother. Your real mother's out there, and oh, by the way, she's probably a deadbeat like your dad." Like, what are your parents doing? This is so weird. The original poster is their mother. She went through the process of adopting these kids and getting them away from their awful father. Like, why on earth would you try to disrupt that and not think about their well-being? Instead, they're trying to use these kids as pawns against the mom and also in favor of the brother finding sobriety, which is like, dude, that is not the answer here. That is like the last thing that would ever be on my mind. Are you kidding me right now? So yeah, I would absolutely cut them off as well. Like, I wouldn't even warn them that this might happen, because what they did is completely unacceptable and they absolutely have no right to do that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to keep doing my cousin's hair for free after she told people that I was overcharging her, all because I asked her to start paying this very small amount? Because right now I'm very pissed off and I don't know what to do about this. Here's how it all happened. Okay, for starters, I do hair on the side. I'm not a salon or anything like that. I just learned from YouTube and practice, and honestly, I've gotten pretty good at it. I do braids, twists, silk presses, protection styles, all of it. It's something I enjoy, and I do it from my apartment on weekdays when I have time. My cousin started coming to me about a year ago asking if I could do her hair. She has 2 daughters and wanted all 3 of them done. Now, I said sure because she's family, and I decided to do it for free every single time. And I did this for a whole year. Now, at first, this was like once a month, which is completely fine. But then it turned into every other week. But then she started showing up with her friends' kids as well, asking if I could just squeeze them in real quick. Pretty soon, my whole Saturday would be gone, and sometimes Sunday as well. I'm talking 8 or 9 hours on my feet, doing hair for free while she sat on my couch watching TV fee on my phone. Well, I finally told her I needed to start charging sometimes. Not even full price, mind you. Just $30 a person to cover the products I was using because that stuff isn't cheap. And I was going through it really fast. We're talking $30 for hours of work. When I made this request though, she lost it on me. She said I was being money obsessed and that real family doesn't keep tabs on that. Then I found out she told people at a family cookout that I was trying to overcharge her for basic hairstyles. But it's like, overcharge? Are you kidding me? We're talking about $30 for braids that take 3 hours to do. I then told her I'm done. Don't ask me anymore. Go to a salon and see what they charge you and then think about what I was offering. So seriously, am I the jerk for standing my ground and asking for just a little bit of compensation here? Because I'm seriously pissed off and I don't know what to do. Bro, your cousin is a piece of crap. Holy cow, dude. She literally tried to be like, oh, I have to pay now? Wow, I can't believe you're overcharging me. Guys, look at this. She's overcharging me. And it's like, what are you talking about? You literally have been getting hair done for free for an entire year. But it's only after you started taking advantage of the original poster were they like, okay, I've got to start charging you. This is way too much. So yeah, this is some crazy behavior. You are definitely not the jerk. And in my opinion, I'm a big fan of fighting fire with fire in this situation because there's no reason your cousin should ever be mouthing off about you. Like if I was in that situation, I would be screaming it from the rooftops. Oh, hey, they've been taking advantage of me for a year. I've been giving them free hairstyles for an entire year, people. And then I would show as many receipts as I possibly have. Whether that's like your scheduling book or whatever might be there to prove that, yeah, they've been doing this for a year. And it's only till recently that you've even asked for some kind of payment and like the bare minimum at that. Because if someone's seriously going to try and like ruin your good name, then they not only deserve to be proven wrong, but also shut down entirely. Am I overreacting for changing my mind on a job offer? All because they misled me about the company vehicle they were offering me. Because right now I feel very tricked and I just don't know if I made the wrong choice or not. Here's how it all happened. Okay, for starters, I applied for a job as a PA to one of the directors of a fairly large firm located in the city center. The interview went well and I got offered the job and told that I can start at the beginning of March. Now, the job requires me to travel from point A to point B, all while carrying important company documents to meet with the director at various locations on a weekly basis, with me being required to wear formal attire like a shirt and a tie. I was on the phone with Human Resources yesterday as she had emailed the paperwork over regarding my contract, and I brought up again about the company vehicle that was advertised in the job specifications and when I would have access to the car itself. Well, when I asked this, she replied by saying, oh yeah, so about that, can you ride a bike instead? Now, at first I thought she was joking, but apparently they're serious. They really expected me to pedal around in a suit on a bicycle through the city while carrying documents regarding company information in a briefcase. Suppose I drop it or lose them while cycling around, like what am I going to do then? I declined the offer and I explained I would not be proceeding with the job role. And I feel like I was in the right since it was misleading, but I really need to know, did I overreact by turning them down? Should I have just taken the job and moved on from there? Because right now I'm not sure. Okay, if you ask me, I think you did the right thing. Dude, they said they're gonna give you a car and then they're like, can you just go on a bicycle instead? Like, I would almost respond back by being like, yeah, are you gonna buy me a new suit when this one gets destroyed? Like, holy crap, give it like 6 months and this suit is gonna be ruined. And I just can't stand that. That's not fair for you at all. You definitely didn't sign up for that, so the fact that these people are trying to like pull the wool over your eyes is uncalled for. So no, in my opinion, you're not overreacting, because this really is a terrible way of starting a work relationship, especially with people you just met. My boyfriend made me move out of our apartment for 3 days just so he could prevent his very strict parents from finding out that we lived together. But now after thinking about it, I feel humiliated and I feel like my dignity has been completely stripped away from me. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what's happening. Okay, I want to start off by saying that I love my boyfriend dearly. We've been together for 3 years and moved in together last year. He is kind, hardworking, and treats me like a princess when it's just the two of us. And if I'm being honest, I truly see a future with him. But the problem here is his family. They are extremely traditional and religious, and they absolutely don't believe in living together before marriage. Now, to avoid causing a scene or risking his relationship with them, and potentially his inheritance, though he says he doesn't care about that, he never told them that I moved in. In fact, for the last year, our apartment has been staged. If they FaceTime him, I have to stay silent in the other room. We don't keep framed photos of us up in the living room just in case, and I felt bad for him at first because his parents are genuinely terrifying and controlling, so I went along with it just to keep the peace. But last week, his his mom came to visit the city on short notice. He then panicked and asked me if I could stay at a friend's place for 3 days, just so she wouldn't know that I lived there. He hid my toiletries and moved my clothing to the back of the closet, and I did it because I was in shock. But sitting on my friend's air mattress, I felt completely humiliated. I'm a 25-year-old woman hiding like a naughty teenager. He says he plans to tell them eventually, maybe once we're engaged, but he's terrified that they will cut him off or that they'll hate me forever. I don't want to force him to choose between his family and me, but I cannot be a secret anymore. He thinks I'm overreacting because it's just a few days, but it feels like he values his comfort over my dignity. So how do I explain to him that this secrecy is destroying my trust in him without acting like I'm attacking his family? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, I have so many problems with this, it's not even funny. First off, the boyfriend in this story is 30 years old. And if you're dating a 30-year-old man who still has like their parents' claws in his back, dictating what he can and can't do with his life, like I don't know about you, but that is a giant red flag. Like seriously, if he wants to live with you, he should at least be open about it and be like, yeah, this is my girlfriend. She lives with me. We've lived together for a year, and if you don't like it, too bad. Because my God, what is going on right now? He literally is hiding you away so he doesn't lose his inheritance or the respect of his family, but it's like, dude, who do you respect more? Your girlfriend that you moved in with you, or your family who's just clearly going to be judgmental and nasty pretty much no matter what? I don't know, this is all just kind of stupid in my opinion, because I think the original poster is in the right here. They have every right to be pissed off at this. I would be so pissed off. I would be like, dude, if you knew your parents were going to act like this, I would have never moved in with you. I would have stayed at my own place and lived our life normally. So I know for a fact if I was in your situation, I would talk to him honestly and openly. I would be like, look, either I'm moving out or we tell your parents what's going on, because I cannot keep living like this. Like the original poster should not be expected to hide at their friend's place for 3 days just to make sure their boyfriend doesn't get in trouble with mommy and daddy. That's incredibly immature, that is stupid, and that is not owning your problems and just running with it. Because the original poster is right. This is humiliating and not okay in my opinion. Today, I loudly called out a group of guys who were whispering gross comments about a woman's book in a coffee shop, but instead of sitting by and letting that happen, I decided to stand up and make a scene, shutting these kids down in a way that they will never forget. But now I'm kind of second guessing my approach, and I don't know if I really made a mistake or not. Here's what happened. Okay, so yesterday, I was at a local coffee shop, tucked in a corner with my Kindle open and just minding my own business. Then this woman, who's maybe in her mid-30s, sits at the table right next to me reading a paperback book that I instantly noticed. It was clearly a dark romance book that I also have read recently. And this is no big deal, like people will read whatever they like. And I applaud the paperback in public because I know some people frown upon a spicy book in public. Anyways, these 3 younger guys come in and decide to sit down a couple tables over. They then start whispering, but not quietly enough. Stuff like, "Oh, I bet she's reading that for ideas tonight. Look at her face, I think she's really bothering this right now." And the entire time they were just laughing and snickering to each other and elbowing each other. You know, the usual immature crap. They were trying to be subtle, but they were failing hard. And it was obvious that she could hear them because she shifted uncomfortably and pulled her book closer to herself like a shield. Well, when I saw this, I got like instantly pissed. I mean, I've seen women get harassed in public way too many times, and I hate that whole like, oh, just ignore it vibe. So I stood up, I turned to them, and I said loud enough for our section to hear, "Hey, if you guys have something to say about what someone's reading, say it to her face instead of being creepy little boys about it. Or better yet, mind your own business and let people enjoy their books in peace." When I said this, the shop went completely quiet. The guys' faces went from smug to oh crap really fast. One even mumbled and said, "We were just joking," and the others just sat there in silence. The woman then looked up surprised and gave me a small smile and a quiet thank you, and then went right back to reading like nothing happened. I then sat back down and finished my coffee. I read a bit more of my book and I left a few minutes later. But now I'm kind of second guessing if I overreacted and did a little bit too much. I didn't cuss them out or get physical with them, but I did make a scene, and I used my size and my voice to shut it down. Part of me wonders if I embarrassed her more by drawing attention, or if I should have just like let her handle it. I mean, she seemed completely capable. But another part of me feels like silence enables that kind of crap. So am I at fault here? Because I don't know if I made a mistake or not. Okay, in my opinion, I think it's always a good idea to call people out like that, especially when they're being blatantly rude and just weird. Like seriously, why can't people just mind their own business? Don't bother people just because they're reading in public. I don't care what they're reading. It's none of your business and there's no reason for you to get involved. So personally, I think you did the right thing. I think it really is a good thing that you stood up for this lady and you at least shut these kids down and said, hey, don't talk to people like that. And hopefully that's a lesson they don't forget anytime soon, because that is just completely inappropriate. My husband cheated on me after being together for almost 10 years, and now I'm struggling to get over over this betrayal because right now I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I have been together for 8 years and would be 2 years married on March. But on January 6th, I found out that he has been cheating on me during the last half of the year with his coworker. When I found out, I immediately asked for a divorce, and he didn't even argue about that. He just packed up some of his stuff and then he left. Now, I made the mistake of asking why multiple times, and he said it's because he stopped loving me as a partner. I was completely blindsided by him and the entire thing. I was even leaving my mental health and migraine medication for months so that we could start trying to get pregnant. And the whole time, while he saw what the withdrawal from my medications was doing to me, he was out there cheating and at the same time encouraging me to keep up so that we could be parents. My mental health has suffered a lot this past month. I'm on sickness leave from work. I'm scared that I'll be fired when I go back, and then my life will be completely ruined. And honestly, I've had some really dark thoughts lately. I get especially sad when he comes to the house to hang with our pets or to take some of his stuff with him. Today, he took the last of his clothing, and getting home and seeing all of it gone was just completely devastating. I feel weirdly humiliated by all that's happened. Living in a small town, everyone is going to know that we didn't even get to our second wedding anniversary, and now we're already getting divorced. I know it's very shallow to care about that, but I do. Some days I get so lonely, depressed, and clingy that I call him at like 3 in the morning after hours, just thinking about our lives together, and I ask him all kinds of questions. Did I change? Am I ugly? Am I boring? Am I mean? Is it because of my body? What has changed that made you stop loving me? I don't know if I just needed to rant, but any advice will be appreciated, because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I think you need to realize that the power is definitely in your hands. I know you think your reputation and your life is ruined, but guess what? He's the one that cheated, not you. So if people do ask like, hey, why didn't you make it to your second wedding anniversary? Then I would shout it from the rooftops, oh yeah, my husband ruined our marriage by cheating. You know those 10 years we were together? Yeah, he screwed it up by going with a coworker. We literally were trying to get pregnant. Like, I would spill all the details. Because at this point, there's no reason to like save his reputation. You don't have to like do anything for him. He clearly is in the wrong, and he's the one that screwed up and not you. Because I can tell from this post that you really cared about him. You really wanted to have a life together. You wanted to have kids together, and you sacrificed a lot mentally just to try and make that happen. So for him to betray you like that, like, dude, I would turn that anguish into anger. I would absolutely flip the script on this, and I would be telling everybody what happened. Because this really is tragic, and I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this. Because this is something you definitely do not deserve in the slightest. My boyfriend is finally doing everything that I begged him to do for such a long time. But now I really think I'm already gone because I'm at a point where I just don't know if I love him anymore, and I just don't know what to do about this. Here's what's happening. Okay, I don't even know how to explain this without it sounding really dramatic. For starters, we've been together for about 4 years, and the first year was amazing. We barely fought, communication felt healthy, and I genuinely thought I was going to marry him. Like, it seriously felt easy. But then slowly I started feeling like I wasn't important anymore. He would make plans with me and then go out with friends first. For example, he would tell me that he'd be at my place at 9 o'clock, but then he would show up at midnight, and this became normal. I would get ready, I would sit there waiting, watching the time, and he would finally show up exhausted and basically go straight to sleep. I told him so many times how disrespectful it felt, but somehow it always turned into me not wanting him to have friends. But that was never it. I just wanted to not feel like the last option. We then went through a period where we argued almost daily, and he talked to me like I was his enemy. We got out of that phase, but something in me shifted. There was also a time I ended up in the ER the same day we argued. He didn't check on me, he didn't call, literally nothing at all because I was still mad, and that hurt in a way that I don't think he understands. A few weeks ago, he asked me out, and I was actually excited. He said he'd be free mid-afternoon, but then he stopped responding, and I saw that he had driven 2 hours away with a friend because he was bored. He then apologized, came back, and we still went out later that night. He drank a lot, whereas I'm a slow drinker, so I had maybe 2 drinks over 2 hours, but he literally had 5 in the first hour or so. We started disagreeing about something small, and eventually it escalated. He didn't just raise his voice. He stood up and started yelling at me in the middle of the bar, loud enough that people turned around. In fact, the table next to us went completely silent. I remember feeling my face get hot and my hands start to shake. I kept telling him to stop and lower his voice, but he just kept going. I've never felt so small and embarrassed in public in my life. And that was the night we took a couple weeks apart. I couldn't get the image out of my head. I mean, I still can't. It wasn't even even just the yelling. It was the way he looked at me while doing it, as if I was the problem and like I deserved it. In fact, he told me that I did. There have also been boundary issues with other women. I don't have proof that he cheated, but he's entertained things that cross lines that we talked about early on. In fact, I found out that he met up with a girl while out with his guy friends at the beginning of our relationship while I was out of town. But his excuse was that she had a boyfriend. When I confronted him, he went through my phone and got upset about old Instagram message requests. Like seriously, it's just the request. I never even accepted it. And it really felt like a deflection. Like he was trying to shift his guilt onto me. I've also dealt with a long-term issue of some guy following me. And at one point, someone sent him explicit photos claiming they were me, but they obviously were not. Instead of immediately believing me, he accused me and got angry before realizing it didn't even make sense. He then apologized later on, but then made comments implying that it was somehow my fault. For months now, we haven't gone on dates. I've suggested simple free things. And while he says that money's tight, he still buys expensive things and goes out with friends without hesitation. He also cancels on my family last minute, even though I show up to everything for his. Now, I'm not sure what we are, but suddenly he's doing everything I've been asking for years. He's giving me flowers, he's planning out dates, he's sending long messages about loving me, he's literally putting in effort. And I've got to be honest, I feel terrible for saying this, but I just don't feel the same anymore. I do love him, but I don't think I'm in love with him. I feel exhausted. It hurts that it took almost losing me for him to treat me the way I've been asking to be treated the entire relationship. He is trying now, but I feel like I already emotionally left. But it's hard for me to walk out when I spent years thinking that this man is going to marry me. So has anyone come back from this? Or is this just what falling out of love looks like? Because right now I don't know what to do. Okay, in my opinion, I think these changes are absolutely temporary. Holy crap, your boyfriend sounds like a nightmare. I totally understand that you've been with this guy for 4 years, but let's think about like the things he has done to you instead of like what he's now suddenly doing, because this really does seem like a flash in the pan. Not only has this guy screamed at you while he's drunk, but he's also like never shown up for you on pretty much any occasion. He's not there for dates or when you went to the emergency room. Like, are you kidding me? So him suddenly like showing up and being like, oh, I love you so much, let's spend all this time together. Like, dude, I wouldn't trust that for a second. This is never gonna last. He's gonna fall back in old habits and probably start sniffing around towards other women. And I would be really surprised if he's not doing that already. So personally, I would not trust this, and I would definitely start trying to move on because you can do way better than this guy. My mother's creepy boyfriend demands that I pay him $340 after he repaired my laptop and bought me new glasses, despite the fact that I never asked him to do either of those things. Because right now, my mom is not helping me, and this guy is treating me like garbage, demanding that I not buy anything else until he gets paid. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female, and due to personal circumstances, I moved in with my mother and her boyfriend for a few months leading up to Christmas. My mom has wanted me to move in for years, which I refused after being in care for a short period of time. Now, around the same time, my mom sat on my glasses and snapped the hinge and the arm off of them. After a few attempts to fix them, it was clear that they were irreparable. I use my glasses for reading my TV screen, as the small writing can be blurry, but my vision otherwise is 100% fine. Now, I also have an Asus VivoBook laptop, which costs about $300, and it was broken. Well, my mother's boyfriend surprises me one morning with not only new glasses, but also my laptop completely fixed. Now, he took it out of a communal drawer without telling me, which made me uncomfortable, and the computer had been completely wiped, which he went ahead with without even asking me. He then paid for it to be upgraded with lots of extra storage. Time goes by, and my mom tells me that he wants the money back for the laptop and storage upgrades. And I tried to explain that it felt really weird, and she agreed, but said this was something that he often did, and that if I wanted to keep the piece, then I simply had to pay him back. He also refused to tell me how much it cost to fix it. I was supposed to just give him money, and he would tell me when it was paid back. Now, I'm a people pleaser by nature, and I didn't want to rock the boat, so I agreed to pay and I gave him $120. I then asked again for the price, and I was told that he had the receipt and he would show me. Well, guess what? He never did. I then gave him another $80 and was told that it was all paid back. Well, fast forward months later, and he is now demanding $140 for the glasses, which is super annoying because I could have gotten a free replacement through my health coverage. I'm being heavily guilted every day for not paying him. I even got myself some food a week ago and was told that it was rude and not to do it again until I pay him back. Now, the receipt for the glasses has still not materialized either. For reference, my mom has exactly zero income. She has no job and no benefits. So even though she broke the glasses, she still can't pay for them. If I had the expendable money to fling away $340, I definitely would do that, but I don't. I have tried to be fair in the situation. And to be clear, I had said multiple times I was going to get my laptop fixed and I was going to get a free pair of new glasses. And these were presented to me as a surprise gift. This guy is also very rude to me all the time. He called me a jerk recently, if the word jerk started with the letter C, if you know what I mean. And the environment around the house has been so bad, I never leave my room unless he's at work in order to avoid his many sly comments. If he was kinder to me, it would be much easier for me to just give him the money when I'm able to. I have found myself waking up, thinking about the situation, and basically tossing and turning, unable to sleep, all because of my anger, which really is very unlike me. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation for not having this money at the drop of the hat? Because right now I'm very frustrated and I don't know what to do. No, this is so weird. Why would this guy do this? Like, this guy literally took your belongings and said, here you go, I fixed them for you, and then demands that you pay him for services you never asked of him. Like, this guy's a total weirdo. Like, what is wrong with him? For me personally, the fact that he took your laptop and cleared it out and added extra storage and gave it back to you, like, that is really sketchy and I would never use that laptop. Like, I would actually make sure that's really cleared out and there's not some kind of like secret spyware on there. I don't know if there's some way you can reset the laptop, but if I was in your shoes, I would scrub that thing down head to toe just to make sure nothing's in it. Because based on this guy's behavior, I can believe that he would do something sketchy like this. And seriously, why is your mom okay with this too? She's sitting here talking about not rocking the boat. Meanwhile, her boyfriend is going out of his way to basically scam your daughter. Like, this whole scenario is so weird, and the fact that you're basically being extorted to pay for something you never wanted, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My restaurant job has brought in some of the weirdest customers I've ever had to deal with, and after putting up with this for 3 years, I'm now questioning everything I've ever had going on, because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been at said restaurant for about 3 years now, and I've been serving there for most of those 3 years. Every year around the holidays, such as Thanksgiving and Christmas, is usually amazing. Customers usually watch you bust your butt, and typically they tip really well for it. But as of today, it seems as if a bunch of jerks have popped out of the woodworks. We did have some crazy coupons going on, and I know that brings out the worst in people, but a total of 2 tables actually used said coupons, so that really shouldn't be an excuse. The first table that really made me question my existence was one that had 5 people, but instead of taking a booth that can fit up to like 7 people, they demanded to push 2 tables together to make an 8-top. Now, because it's Thanksgiving week, that really messed us over later on. My next table flat up screamed at me because of something corporate decided to start doing a year ago, which is like, sure, whatever, I can't control that. They also tipped me 10% because what they ordered had an upcharge. And again, I don't get paid hourly and I'm not corporate, so I don't know what they want me to do about it. My last table said I was the best server they've ever had, but then they proceeded to tip me $1 on a $40 tab. He also chugged 10 sweet teas in the hour he was there, and yes, I was counting. And that was also when my mental stability actually left my body. However, that was my last table of the day, so I left after that. The table that actually did it for me was my mid-shift. They are regular customers that are apparently gluten-free. However, they ordered nothing to match that. They sent back their salads 3 times. And I could say the first one was genuinely my fault and I told them that. I mean, we are all human and we mess up from time to time. But the second time, the complaint was that their roasted chicken was too peppery. And as a side note, our roasted chicken is not only dry, but it's also unseasoned. It seriously just tastes like dry turkey. I told her I can do it without the protein so it's not peppery, since you can't do non-existent seasoning. Then they wanted to buy $200 worth of gift cards, which again, no problem there. We actually have a contest to see who sells the most, and it puts my name in a hat, so that's fine by me. But then they tried to pay with said gift card, but then 10 minutes later, I realized that we cannot take gift card purchases with a gift card. This is my first year selling gift cards, so it definitely took me on a wild goose chase. I then tell them that I can only do the food with said coupon, and they were fine with me splitting it like that. However, the buy one get one coupon went off that check as soon as I split it. So without me or the customers realizing that I did this, I ran the card through without any of that on there, which then turned into another problem where I had to void the whole check and do it again. And by the way, this is all happening while I have 8 other tables to take care of. Anyways, after the the whole hour they were there, as well as the 15 refills that they got, I ended up getting a 10% tip. They didn't even pay for 2 of the $12 salads, and I did all of that for 10%, plus these people come in all the time. So truly, with all due respect, I think people like this should not be allowed to go out, and it should be okay to tell people don't come back. So am I overreacting, or am I crazy in this scenario? Or is there something in the air that's making people act like idiots? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Yeah, I've been in this situation before where it seems like, man, everybody is out of their minds. Nobody's acting like a normal human being, and everybody's just off their rocker. So no, I don't think you were overreacting, but I definitely think this is just one of those situations that definitely can happen in the restaurant business. Because trust me, I agree with everything that you had to say. Am I the jerk for leaving in the middle of Thanksgiving dinner? All because of the way that my mom treated me. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother hosts Thanksgiving dinner at her house every single year. It's a small family event with my parents, me, my brother's family, and my sister-in-law's family attending. Now, we avoid family quarrels by implementing a strict no politics rule and trying our very best to be civil. I should probably also mention that we are not a particularly close-knit family. We rarely see each other beyond these events, since my brother lives in South Africa and I travel a lot due to my work. Thanksgiving is important to my mom since it's one of the rare times that we're all together. Anyways, the main problem that I have with my mother is her constant critique of me. She has a habit of making passive-aggressive comments about my life choices, from my career to my lack of children, all the way up to the way that I dress. I've addressed this with her multiple times, but she doesn't really seem to be aware of it. My father claims it's just her way of fussing and expressing that she does care, but it does hurt though, because my brother is never criticized in the same manner. I cannot entirely fault her for her criticism, since I did majorly mess up my life a few months ago, and it has affected her opinion of me negatively. It does not excuse the way that I acted, but I just wanted to explain why I left. By the time we finished dinner, I was a bit prickly because of some of her commentary. Now, for reference, I made a cake for dessert. I was explicitly put in charge of it, and no one specified what exactly I should make. So I opted to make a maple cheesecake. I did my best, and honestly, I thought it looked okay. My mom normally makes pumpkin pies, but I really hate pumpkins, so I thought perhaps we could try something new. As I was bringing out the cheesecake, my mom looked at it somewhat weirdly and announced that she had decided to make the usual pie as well. This caught me off guard. I asked why she didn't tell me beforehand, and she said something like, "Well, we figured that you would do your own thing, so I thought it was best to have a backup plan." She then went on to cut the pie and serve it to everybody, instructing me to leave the cheesecake in the kitchen. When someone asked to try my dessert, she said, "Let's not mix too many flavors at once," which honestly felt passive-aggressive. I know it's immature for an adult to get this upset over a triviality, but I just politely refused as she was handing me a slice of pie. And then I decided to retrieve my coat and I left the party. People were calling after me, I think, but by that point, I was crying for some reason, and it would have been too humiliating to have an emotional outburst in front of everyone for no reason. My mom then just texted me, saying that it was incredibly rude and immature of me to leave like that, especially on Thanksgiving. My brother also sent me a message saying that I'm acting irrationally. I feel horrible for leaving so abruptly, especially because my parents are getting older, and we are already not that close. Something about my mother seems to turn me into a neurotic teenager, and I honestly hate it. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because seriously, your mom sounds like a piece of garbage. Like, she really does sound like a nasty piece of work, and I completely understand why you're not that close to her. Like, she could have been so much better about this entire situation without being a massive jerk about it in the process. But instead, she chooses to be nasty for literally no other reason other than just to put you down one more time. And I completely understand where you're coming from. Sometimes those passive-aggressive remarks can be worse than anything more pointed. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would question ever going back to her house again on any other kind of holiday, because it really seems like this kind of treatment is definitely going to happen. This next story came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for choosing my boyfriend's family over mine for Thanksgiving dinner? Because after I left to go to my boyfriend's house, my mom has been guilt-tripping me hard, saying that I'm abandoning my family all because I agreed to eat at my boyfriend's house. And right now, I feel very frustrated and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I spent Thanksgiving with my boyfriend's family, and now my parents are upset. My family has never been big on Thanksgiving. We've never had a traditional dinner together, and most years, I've either just worked or done my own thing. Every once in a while, my mom will make food, but it's just there for us to eat whenever we wanted. In fact, we would never just sit down and eat as a family. Also, this kind of ended during my high school years. Well, this year, my boyfriend invited me to his family's Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving, but initially I declined since my dad mentioned that he might invite his family over, which would have been an absolute first. But when I followed up with my dad the day before Thanksgiving, he said it wasn't happening after all. So I told my mom that I'd go to my boyfriend's dinner at 12 o'clock, and seriously, she seemed okay with it. But when I was getting ready to leave the next day, my mom was cooking and told me, well, you better eat with your brother and sister before leaving to eat with another family. The food should be ready in about 2 hours. Now at this point, it's about 11:30 in the morning, so I told her that I couldn't because I wanted to be on time for my boyfriend's dinner, and also because I was bringing the apple cider for the dinner and his dad had gotten us movie tickets. But then in that moment, my parents got really mad and said that I was forgetting my roots and that I had chosen my boyfriend's family over them. Now, if I knew that my mom was still cooking and wanting us to eat together first, I wish he would have told me last night so I wouldn't have told my boyfriend's mom that I would be there to eat with them or even to go to the movies afterward. Now, I felt bad, but still I left the next day, and my mom is still saying that I picked my boyfriend's family over them and all this other stuff, and I just honestly don't think it's that serious. Also, a while ago, she said she's going to stop calling to check on me when I come in late after work past 7 o'clock p.m. because I told her I'm 23 and I don't need her to call me if I'm not home by 7, which apparently she took offense to, and now she's saying that this is going to be another one of the things that she won't bother me about, since apparently I see nothing wrong with not eating with family first. So I told her that I'm not sure what that situation has to do with any of this, and that she's being petty and weird. I honestly think my parents are just not used to their kids having a significant other, and they just don't know how to react to certain things, because none of my siblings have ever been with someone before. Now, I say this because there's been so many other things that they are very overprotective about, especially when it comes to my dating life and me spending time with my boyfriend, that I honestly just don't want to get into. Also, I live with my parents and siblings, and I see and speak to them every single day, so it's not like I'm abandoning them or never gonna see them again. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk because your dad literally said the day before that a family dinner is not happening. So for your mom to suddenly be like, oh yeah, we're gonna be eating in like 2 hours, you need to be here. It's like, nope, I'm sorry, I can't do that. You literally made commitments somewhere else and you have to honor those. Plus, your family never eats together for dinner. Like, this is not something that ever happens, and it literally almost seems spur of the moment, all because you're deciding to go somewhere else. Like, it really comes off like your mom is just using this as an excuse to be petty, instead of this being some like legitimate criticism about you and the family. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here, and if anything, I think your mom's being a petty weirdo, because the way she's acting, in my opinion, is completely unhinged, and you do not deserve this kind of treatment in the slightest. Am I the jerk for calling my mom a toddler and telling her that I no longer trust her with my money, because after she scammed me out of my reimbursement for buying Thanksgiving dinner, I now seriously don't trust her, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 19-year-old female, and I went grocery shopping on Thanksgiving for the household, which for the record, I couldn't afford, but I was also operating on the assumption that my mother would reimburse me the cost, as she had agreed to do so before I left. I also kept it under $150 as also agreed upon. However, today she gave me only a portion of that money, and in the note that she left me, she noted that she had given me the money and implied that I had been lying about the costs in order to get more money out of her. I showed her my recent transaction history proving that I wasn't lying, but she then accused me of misremembering what she had agreed to. She said to me, I never said I would cover everything. I only said I would give you some of the money. Now, as an important side note, she is convinced that I'm lying about virtually everything because when I was younger, I had manipulated her various times out of desperation in some kind of attempt to hang out with my friends and comb the city for extracurricular activities. She was one of those parents who were obsessed with crime statistics, so she never allowed me to venture beyond a mile away from home regardless of the time or day. And as a result, the nature of my friendships were shallow, given that I didn't have the opportunity to cultivate more meaningful bonds beyond the confines of school. Now, admittedly, this loss is relatively small. I'm a broke college student on financial aid whose pay was docked this month due to my boss's absence. Together, both my grandmother and I cover the majority of household expenses, and every dollar counts. So now I'm in an even bigger hole. But I was more upset about the fact that she's gone back on an agreement, especially how contemptuous she is of me for having done the same in the past. Now, I told her as much, and she predictably launched into a tirade about how I'm perpetually dishonest. But I haven't lied to her since the previously mentioned moments. I said that it's unfair for her to judge me, especially according to some of my worst moments in my life, and to continue to resent me for exhibiting developmentally appropriate behavior that she'd react to in such an immature manner disproportionate to the offense. Like, she would storm away and slam doors and refuse to talk to me for 48 hours and accuse me of wishing that she hadn't been born, especially when I tried to explain why I had felt compelled to lie to her. I asked if she would berate a baby for crying in public or scream at a toddler for climbing something they weren't supposed to. I said if she was too much of a toddler to understand why it's ridiculous to hold a grudge against your child for doing something children typically do, then it is not my problem, and I don't care to waste my time trying to get back in her good graces. I also thanked her for teaching me a valuable lesson, that I am never going to trust her with my money ever again. Well, after that conversation, she stormed off to her room and has texted me the following: "Do not text me, do not call me, and do not email me, because according to you, I'm a 2-year-old, and toddlers are not parents." So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your mom lied to you, and she basically made you buy Thanksgiving dinner for free. Sure, she gave you some money, but she went back on your verbal deal that yes, she would cover the money. Like, that is honestly so dishonest, it's not even funny. And that would really upset me, especially if I was a student and my budget was so set in stone. Like, I'm willing to bet you don't have a lot of money to throw around in the first place, so the fact that she took advantage of you when you had no money to begin with, like, that is crazy to me, and there's no good excuse. So no, you're not the jerk for telling your mom off, because if I was in your shoes, I would also never trust her with any of my money. Am I the jerk for calling out my friend for her rude comments after she said some brutally harsh things to a mutual friend, all under the guise that she was just being quirky and different? Because right now, I've apparently really offended her, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and I have a friend who we will call Sarah, who's always been kind of unique. She's one of those people who prides herself on being quirky and different, and while I completely get that, sometimes it crosses a line into being rude or inconsiderate. She will often interrupt people mid-conversation to share her random thoughts, even if it's completely off topic. She's also really loud and makes awkward comments about personal things, such as asking a couple if they'd ever consider an open relationship at a dinner party, or commenting on someone's weight without any kind of filter. I have talked to her about it in a nice way before, saying that sometimes it feels like she's not really paying attention to the social dynamics or how others might feel about her comments, but she brushes it off by saying, "I'm just being myself. You can either take it or leave it." Well, this weekend we were at a gathering, and she made a huge scene by loudly criticizing a mutual friend's new haircut. Now, it was a bad haircut, but she didn't need to say anything. At that point, I finally snapped, and I told her that she's not being quirky, she's just being rude, and it really is starting to get on my nerves. Well, after I said that, she was really upset. She said I was trying to suppress her personality, and that I don't appreciate her for who she is. And now she's been ignoring me, and our friend group is completely divided. So am I the jerk for calling her out, or should I just let her continue with her stupid, quirky behavior? What should I do? No, you are not the jerk, because this really is inconsiderate. It feels like dealing with that one friend who's like brutally honest, where they say what's ever on their mind and then try to be like, well, that's just who I am. I am just a brutally honest person. Take it or leave it. Like, that type of person and the person that Sarah is, in my opinion, are cut from the same cloth. But in this case, the delivery is more funny than the other person. And honestly, I can't stand people who act like this. If you're really that socially inept, where you legitimately don't see that you're offending people around you, then that doesn't mean that you're some kind of like bold person. That means, in my opinion, that you're a social pariah, and you clearly have no social skills even to begin with. I mean, come on. Who in their right mind would ask a couple if they've ever considered an open relationship? She had better know that couple really well to ask that kind of question, or she really is just too dumb to see that this is not something you ask people. So no, you're not the jerk for calling her out, because her rude behavior absolutely deserves to have consequences, because her comments, in my opinion, are incredibly offensive. An entitled Karen demands a full refund on the wedding photos I took for her 5 years ago, claiming that because she got a divorce and her marriage fell apart, she should get a full refund for the wedding photos that I took. But after I told her I wouldn't refund her the $3,000 she paid 5 years ago, she's now claiming that I'm profiting off of her misery, somehow shifting the blame of her marriage falling apart on my shoulders. Here's what happened. I'm a 34-year-old female, and I am a wedding photographer with over a decade of experience. 5 years ago, I was hired by a woman who we will call Emily to photograph her wedding. At the time, she was very happy with my work, and I provided a package that included a full-day shoot, an engagement session, a wedding album, and digital copies of all the edited photos. She and her then husband, who we will call Jake, left a glowing review and recommended me to several friends, and everything was great. Well, fast forward to 2 weeks ago, and I get an email from Emily. She says that she and Jake divorced last year, and that she wants a refund for the wedding photos because they no longer hold any value to her. She said it's unfair that she paid so much for photos that now only serve as a painful reminder of a relationship that didn't last. Now, at first, I honestly thought it was a joke, but she was being completely serious, meaning that she's asking for a full refund, which would be about $3,000. I politely declined and explained that the service was rendered in full. The photos were delivered, and she had no complaints at the time, but she insists that I am profiting off of her misery and that a refund is the least I can do given her circumstances. I've never encountered anything like this before, and while I do feel bad that her marriage ended, I don't think it's fair for her to demand her money back now. Since I declined, she has been sending me increasingly aggressive messages and has even left a new, very negative review on my business page. Some mutual acquaintances who were also my clients have reached out to me saying that I should consider giving her at least a partial refund so that I can avoid any bad publicity. But I'm standing my ground because I believe this is absurd. But now I'm starting to wonder, am I being the jerk for refusing to give her any money back? Because right now I'm not sure what to do. Oh wow, this is literally insane. This entitled Karen really wants to get all that money back, all because her marriage fell apart 5 years later? Like, I'm sorry, but you definitely do not deserve any of that money back. That $3,000 was spent half a decade ago. And just because her marriage fell apart doesn't mean that you're somehow responsible for it. Because guess what? If she doesn't like those wedding photos, then just take them down. Delete them, get rid of them, do whatever you want. But don't come back 5 years later and expect a refund. And the fact that she's trying to be like, wow, you're profiting off of my misery. It's like, what are you talking about? You were not miserable when you got married. You left a glowing review and you literally were happy with what you got. And I'm pretty sure that's probably incredibly easy to see. So the fact that she's coming back 5 years later being like, give me my money back, my marriage failed. It's like, I'm sorry, but that is not going to work. It is also crazy to me that any mutual acquaintance of any kind would even begin to entertain this crazy psycho Karen, because she is literally trying to get money back for something she spent 5 years ago, all under the guise that the original poster is somehow at fault for her marriage falling apart. So no, of course you're not the jerk. This Karen is out of her mind crazy, and anyone in their right mind, or even with a shred of common sense, would see that this lady is completely out of line. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for no longer welcoming my mother-in-law into my home after she said some mean things about my son? Because right now I feel like I'm in the wrong, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've watched my in-laws, namely my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my sister-in-law's husband, trash talk about their entire family for years. Now, I usually just say it's not appropriate, or I walk away, or I don't even engage in the conversation. I've told my husband many times that if she ever spoke that way about our family, she will not be welcome around us anymore. Well, my mother-in-law is at our house for Thanksgiving. She lives multiple states away, and we only see her once or twice a year, although she's been discussing purchasing a home near us. My son is a teenager and he's autistic, and she is well aware of the fact that he is on the spectrum. My son was in the basement running on the treadmill, talking to himself loud enough for us to hear. My mother-in-law then said, "What is he doing?" And I replied by explaining that he's talking to himself. She asked why, and I said, well, it's because it makes him feel good. She then says to me, "Oh, he's weird." And this is one of those comments where she wasn't joking and she wasn't kidding around. In fact, she was being very straightforward. So I told her that she's weird and then I walked off. I went upstairs shaking, and I told my husband what happened and that she is no longer welcome in my son's home. This is his safe space. He masks and keeps it together outside of these four walls all day, every day. And if he wants to talk to himself in his own home, he should not be subjected to judgment. Also, if she feels comfortable enough to say this to my face, then what is she saying behind his back? Now, my husband said he would talk to her, and I told him to ask her to leave tomorrow. For reference, it is dark, and she doesn't drive in the dark, so she can't leave today. He went and talked to her and came back up and said she realized what she's done is wrong and that she is sorry and that she won't do it again. He said that no one has ever called her on it before, and she didn't know if it was a problem before, and we shouldn't just cut her off and just give her another chance. Even though, as a side note, this is completely false, because every time she has said something inappropriate about other family members, I have told her straight up that it isn't okay. The fact that an adult has to be told it's not okay to call an autistic child weird is pretty wild, and I want to protect my children from her. My husband is now insisting we discuss this right now, and that I be willing to work through this and not just cut her off. But teaching her manners is not my responsibility, because my son's well-being is my responsibility. possibility. If she wants to work on herself, come back later to apologize, and demonstrate she won't say things like that again, then I will be happy to welcome her back. But until then, she is not welcome in my house. So am I the jerk for making this kind of stance? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because what she said about your son is absolutely unacceptable. Even after you explained that maybe this is just something he likes to do, she still said that he's weird. And honestly, I completely agree with you. If she's saying this to your face, then what is she saying behind your back? Especially when you consider her history of like talking trash to other family members. So no, I don't think you're the jerk for being like, no, I don't want her in my house, because her behavior, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. My boyfriend's mom doesn't like me, despite the fact that she's never met me and doesn't want to meet me. And now I feel like I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, this is a bit complicated. My boyfriend and I have been together for about 6 months. We are extremely compatible, and I can see this relationship going the distance. I live alone currently, and I am very financially secure, and I'm happy with my life. My partner is also financially secure, but he lives with his mom, and he has lived with his mom his entire life. My boyfriend, who we will call James, could afford to move out, but due to their housing situation and his mom's mental health issues, he's continued to live there to ensure that she doesn't get moved. So James initially told me that he was going to save to buy the house they currently live in, so that way he could move out without risking his mom being relocated. And at the time, I didn't say much about this, although in my mind, I figured it would set him back a lot. James has paid everything towards the house since he was about 16 years old, and his mom just doesn't work. She's had the opportunity to have jobs, but chooses not to, and this never sat right with me. She's also put off meeting me, but I figured it would happen soon enough. However, a few weeks ago, we booked to go away together for a couple of nights, and we had an incredible time. But the night we came back, I found out that night before he went away, his mom had kicked him out. You know, the house that he pays for. And he stayed at a friend's place and didn't mention it since he did not want to ruin our trip. She kicked him out as soon as he said he was going away with me, telling him that he had to choose between me and her, and saying that he shouldn't date me since I'm diabetic, and she doesn't want her grandchildren being diabetic as well. And for reference, I've had type 1 diabetes since I was 11, and my mom is also type 2 diabetic, so this really baffled me. Now, of course, I was furious. Me having diabetes was completely out of my control, and her attack on me just made me feel like I didn't deserve love for something so stupid. Long story short, James was crying to me and saying he couldn't lose me, that she kicked him out since he was defending me. Bear in mind, James has only ever said positive things about me, and I've only been loving. I had given him flowers on multiple occasions so that he could give them to his mom when she was having health concerns, and I've done nothing but treat him with love and respect. Now, since then, him and his mom are fine, but she has said nothing about meeting me or even wants to acknowledge the relationship. And to be honest, I don't know how to feel. Now, me and his closest friends have told him that she seems to view him as a husband and is the nightmare boy mom that you see in any kind of movie, feeling like I'm stealing her son. James has realized this, and we are now saving for a house together, and he has said that he is no longer going to buy the house for his mom as he refuses to put his life on hold for her anymore. She always has something bad to say about any girl he has mentioned prior to me, but she has snapped this time, since she's realized that we are serious about a future together. They've always been extremely close, and he has spent his life feeling like he owes her since she raised him as a single parent and gave up a lot. But myself and his friends have since opened his eyes to the fact that this is your job as a parent, and that he doesn't owe her his life because of this. However, I now just don't know what to do. My family loves James, as do I, but I always envision having a good relationship with my partner's family. His grandparents adore me and can't understand the mindset of his mom, but I can't see the issue being resolved. From what I've heard, she needs some serious help for her mental health, but she never seems to stick with it. Part of me is worried that she's going to manipulate him back in, and our plans to buy together in a year or so just won't happen, and then I'd most likely have to end the relationship. James assures me this won't be the case, and that his mom wanting him to leave the only person that's ever done right by him has thankfully opened his eyes, as she should be happy for him since everyone else can see that I'm the one. So do I accept the way that his mother is and trust James to do the right thing for his future and for our future together? I can't help but feeling that his mom has drawn me almost into a battle of me versus her, which never should have been the case. I can't go over to his house for obvious reasons, so we can go out together and he can come to mine, but we won't be living together for at least another 12 months. My plan was always to buy a house, but it speeds things up with us saving together. I guess I'm just looking for advice to a really messed up situation, and if there's any hope for us to be happy together, or if I just need to leave. What should I do? Okay, in my opinion, and this is literally just what I think, Like, this is seriously so early in the relationship to be dealing with this kind of garbage. For starters, the fact that his mom is acting this way, in my opinion, is insane, because I think you've captured it entirely. She doesn't want her son to leave because she feels that you're stealing him from her. Also, the fact that you guys are looking at a house at 6 months in, like, that really is crazy fast if you ask me. For reference, both of them are 24 years old, so there really is a lot of time to figure out if this is someone you want to be married to, let alone buy a house with. Like, sure, you love James, but clearly his mom is kind of crazy, and I think I understand your hesitation. Like, would you want to be dealing with that for literally the rest of your life? Because I don't know about you, but I can put up with a lot, but the fact that his mom is antagonistic towards you before even meeting you, like, that in and of itself is not something that I would immediately want to deal with. So hopefully this all works out for you in some kind of way, and hopefully his mom is able to see the light of day and, like, accept you even at the bare minimum, because the way she's acting right now, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. Am I overreacting for getting pissed off at my father after he threw a pie in my boyfriend's face at Thanksgiving dinner? Because right now I feel like I messed up, and at this point I don't know what to do. Okay, to start things out, my boyfriend has social anxiety. He's not very used to family reunions since his grandma was adopted from another country, and he is from another state. Nevertheless, he still makes it to my family functions. My father has always been kind of different. I've thought for a while now that maybe he's on the spectrum, as he struggles with social norms and is unable to read a room. My father and I have had a lot of friction most of our lives, until recently when he seemed to really let up, as he's always tried controlling my life and becomes more upset than most parents when I am not following the path that he wishes me to be on, and I honestly feel he's not respecting my boundaries. Now, for additional context, we are at my aunt and uncle's house for Thanksgiving. My aunt is a professor at university, and her husband is a partially retired business owner. Their house is immaculate. It is one of the 6 houses on a Victorian walk of homes in their town, and it's not really a home that you want to goof around in. My oldest bonus son, we'll call him Max for the sake of the story, is 10 years old, and I found him tearing up in the kitchen as he was missing a late relative of his. We talked for a while, and after feeling better, we both got a slice of pie. And of course, we had to get those good feelings out by piling on a bunch of whipped cream. 3 of my uncles chanted to Max to keep going, and eventually we had more cream than we did pie. As I was leaving the room though, I overheard my father bet him $20 to pie his father. Now, I assumed he was joking, so I kept walking to my boyfriend. We're then with the entire extended family when I see my dad and Max approach my boyfriend from behind. They're both giggling, but my dad is holding the pie. He then grabs my boyfriend's head and slams the pie as hard as he could into his face, and he did not go light. I then snapped at my father and the whole room went silent. My uncles kept apologizing that they tried to convince him not to do it, but he would not listen. My dad then tried saying that Max offered him $20. Now, my dad apologized to my boyfriend, but he was smirking afterwards, so he doesn't feel it was very genuine. I genuinely think that my dad was trying to show off and got brownie points with Max and didn't think it through. In the past, when my father has done things like this, he is unable to see the other side. Well, I have to see him shortly, and my boyfriend doesn't want me to talk about it with him because he doesn't want my dad and my relationship to be damaged from it, since our relationship is really only just starting to grow. But what is his motive besides to embarrass him in front of the entire family? We have been together 3 years now, but he doesn't see most of those family members outside of holidays. On a positive note, my boyfriend scores tons of brownie points with my family. So am I overreacting for being upset that my father pied my boyfriend in front of the entire family? Because right now I really don't know what to do. No, you're not overreacting at all. This was highly inappropriate and your dad should be ashamed of himself. Although from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like that's something he's able to do. Like, seriously, what is his problem? He doesn't know your boyfriend like that. He has no idea how your boyfriend's gonna react to that. So for him to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna pie him in the face just to get a laugh, like, that's incredibly inconsiderate. And if I was in your shoes, I would be so pissed off. If there was some kind of like extended relationship between your boyfriend and your dad, where like they really were good friends and they liked each other and they were on super friendly, good terms or something like that, then sure, pie him in the face and get a good laugh out of it. But from the sounds of it, this really does seem like a one-sided situation where your dad did this literally at the expense of your boyfriend. So in my opinion, this is highly inappropriate. There's no reason for him to have done this, and honestly, he really should be ashamed of himself. So no, I don't think you overreacted at all, and honestly, I think if I was in your shoes, I definitely would have a conversation with him, because this is something, in my opinion, I think absolutely needs to be talked about. My boyfriend has a new coworker that I'm worried about, as he is constantly bringing her up and is always finding reasons to spend time with her, even in moments that I don't know about. And at this point, I feel very paranoid and jealous, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been dating my boyfriend for 3 years years now, and this female coworker is supposedly engaged to her boyfriend. He started working a temporary job probably 2 months ago now. He talked about this one girl that is his manager a lot, about how she is trying to move him up, and how she's expressed that she likes him working there, but I didn't really think anything of it. But then one day we are drinking and hanging out with his friends, and he brings her up. He talks about how she's so cool, and they have a lot in common with a big smile on his face. Then he goes on to say that she really wants to meet me and become best friends with me. Now in my head, I thought that was a bit weird. I mean, he's only been working there for a month, and she's saying things like they've been friends for a while. That's when I started to feel a little bit weird about it, but I didn't say anything, and I started talking about something else. Later in the evening, when it's just me and him, he asked why I changed the subject when he was talking about her. I said because I felt weird how he randomly brought up his coworker while we are hanging out with friends, and the way that he was talking about her. That's when I finally asked how old she is, and he told me that she's 24, which by the way is our age. I asked to see a picture of her, and yep, she is very pretty and definitely his type. But this whole time, I pictured someone that was maybe 35 for some reason. Anyways, she is now the lead in every story he tells about work, so I asked if they're getting close. He says he doesn't really know what I mean, and then just says no. We then got into an argument about her, and I agreed to back off because he says there's nothing. Now, I will admit I wasn't being the most civil person about this, and I did accuse him of liking her, which caused the argument in the first place. Another month goes by, and he avoids saying her name now, except for the fact that they asked her to make a list of employees that she really wants to keep, you know, because this is a temporary job, and that apparently she put his name on top of her list because she really likes him. And at this point, all I can say is, well, that's really good for you, I guess. Fast forward to last night, and we were talking about how his family and I are going out for his mom's birthday for a pop-up bar after he gets off of work today. He then mentioned something about her, and how he doesn't want to let her down at work on a responsibility or something like that, and that he's gonna leave work early to make it to his mom's birthday. Then he gets a smile on his face and says that she's supposed to be there. And I'm just like, wait a second, what do you mean she's supposed to be there? He said he mentioned the bar that they're going to, and that she invited herself because it's close to her house. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of weird for a coworker to invite herself to your mom's birthday party. Then he says I'm being judgmental, and that just because I wouldn't do that doesn't make it weird. And it's like, okay, that's fair, but I just do find it weird and inappropriate. Then I start questioning how close they really are, because she clearly feels comfortable enough to invite herself to his mom's birthday. He then says that they're friendly, and I then ask him if he wants her there too. And he says to me, yes. He says he would have wanted to invite her himself, but he knew that I would freak out if he did. And I'm just like, wait a second, why do you want this random coworker you've known for 2 months to meet your whole family? He says it's not a big deal, and he only wanted to because she lives close by. But I say to him, listen, I'm friendly to my coworkers too, but I just can't imagine myself or them inviting themselves to my mom's birthday. But once again, he says I'm being judgmental. Then in the morning, he says that she's going with her friend and that she's just going to say hi. But I felt it was weird, and he didn't mention that before, and he acted like she was going to be joining us the night before. Anyways, I was being a jerk about it and said I wasn't going to be nice to her. Then I calmed down and apologized for being a jerk about it, but I will admit I was being paranoid and jealous about this entire thing. He then gets really mad at one point and says that he went out to eat with his coworkers one day but didn't tell me because he knew that I would get mad at him for her being there. And it really made me feel like garbage about myself, while simultaneously made me worry about what else he's been keeping from me. Anyways, I feel like I'm going absolutely crazy and that I'm being the insane paranoid girlfriend, and I honestly just want to stop. I don't know what to do, honestly, because I really don't feel like I trust this girl, but I also want to stop causing these problems in my relationship all because I'm jealous. What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Why is your boyfriend being so weird about this coworker? Like, from the sounds of it, it really does come off like he has some kind of like secret crush with her, especially with the fact that he feels the need to hide information from you. You've been with this guy for 3 years, and suddenly this girl comes around that he's only known for 2 months, and she is now this major point of discussion and like this one thing he always wants to talk about. So truly, I don't blame you for getting paranoid and jealous, because your boyfriend is not helping the situation at all. He's not putting you at ease, he's not saying anything to be like, oh, don't even worry about it. Instead, he's almost like bouncing it right back at you and being like, wow, why are you so judgmental? You hate her and you've never even met her. And it's like, wait a second, you do know that this is your girlfriend you're talking to, right? Like, this other lady is a coworker. You don't know her that well, and you're almost like protecting her in some kind of way. That is honestly so weird to me, and I just will never understand that kind of attitude. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would be freaked out by this as well. Because the way your boyfriend is acting, in my opinion, is one giant red flag. And in my opinion, you have every right to be upset about this, especially when he's doing so little to try and calm your nerves. My entitled neighbor hits my car and then runs off, stating that he will never go through insurance to pay for the damages he did to my car, forcing me to call the cops. And I'm honestly still blown away by this situation entirely. Here's what happened. Okay, so this took place several years ago. I work in a group home for adults with special needs, and the building I work in is just a regular bungalow in a residential area. Parking isn't ideal because all we have is one narrow driveway. So if the driveway is free when you get there, then fine. But if someone is already parked there when you arrive, you end up blocking them in if you park in the driveway. Now this is not ideal, as we often leave on errands for the residents during our shift. So when the driveway is occupied, we park on the street in front of the house. And this is perfectly legal. I live in Canada in an area that gets tons of snow in the winter. So the only rules about parking are that you cannot block a fire hydrant. And from the 15th of October to the 15th of April, you can't park on the streets from midnight to 7 o'clock in the morning. And this is also so the snowplows can do their job in the event of a storm. All other times of day are fair game, and anything in the summer is acceptable. Now, my situation took place on a sunny afternoon in late June, so it was perfectly legal for me to park there on the street. So I'm at work doing my job when there's a knock on the door. My coworker answered, and it turned out it was the guy who lives across the street. He and his wife were heading out of town and were traveling in their truck, which had a trailer hitched to the back. My car was parked on the street across from him, and as he was backing out of his driveway, he backed his trailer right into my front driver's side wheel well. So I go out to inspect the damage, and he's already mad, saying how frustrating it is that the people in our house are always parked on the street, that it makes it hard for him to get out of his driveway, and all this other garbage. Now, mind you, this is the first time he has said anything to any of us, but honestly, whatever. I didn't say anything to him, but I just looked at my car to see the damage, and it was pretty bad. In fact, it ended up costing $2,000 to repair it. So I just say, let's just exchange insurance information, and that is quite literally the only thing I've said to him up to this point. Well, when I said that, he gets very angry. He starts yelling and says he refuses to go through insurance, saying it's my fault for being parked on the street, and he'll have to pay for the damages, but only if I take my car to this guy that he knows. His wife then adds that they're doing me a favor by even telling me. They could have just driven off. Well, technically yes, but that's actually illegal, so no, you weren't doing me any favors. Again, I don't say much, and I just reiterate that I'd like to go through the insurance. Well, this guy flat out refuses, which is also incredibly illegal. So I say to him, fine, I'm just gonna call the police then. And at this point, he says he's not sticking around, and he and his wife actually drive off. And it was then that I absolutely called the police. The cops arrive and see that I'm parked legally and say there's no reason he shouldn't have been able to back out without hitting me. Now, here's perhaps the most annoying part of all of this. They track him down the next day and come back to let me know that they've spoken to him. It turns out he's a retired guard for the local jail, and according to the officer who did the follow-up, apparently he seems like a good guy. He's quite nice. And well, yes, I'm sure he was nice to the cop. But me, the rather small female civilian, not so much. Because this cop literally tries to convince me to not go through insurance. And I'm thinking to myself, what is going on right now? He's part of your club, so he gets a free pass for being a jerk? No thank you. This guy verbally attacks me for his mistake. Then he drove away from the scene of an accident. So they need to fine him. Don't try to make this easier on him. He's a jerk. Well, I went through insurance, and my insurance covered 100% of the cost and deemed it all not my fault, which was a relief as it means my premiums were not affected. And you know what? I'm pretty sure cops have to issue a ticket when a motor vehicle collision occurs. So I'm not really sure what happens with a neighbor, but I'm guessing he received some sort of fine because I know I definitely didn't. Man, this story really pisses me off. Imagine parking your car on the street and then someone not only hits your car, but then refuses to go through insurance for it and also decides to run away. And I don't know about you, but that is definitely the definition of a hit and run. Even though there was like a conversation beforehand, these people hit your car and then they ran off. So the fact that the cops didn't do anything more serious is absolutely insane in my opinion. These are such crooked cops, like oh my god, that is so unacceptable. So truly, I'm blown away by these cops' behavior because this is not a good look in the slightest. And the fact that you had to even argue your case in the first place, in my opinion, is absolutely unacceptable. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk if I told my housemate that his OCD and house rules are making our lives a living nightmare? Because right now, I seriously don't know what what to do. Here's what happened. So my partner and I moved into a house that we share with two other guys ages 19 and 25. Now I'm generally tidy and I've shared a house for many years, but the 19-year-old male has been overly strict and passive-aggressive since we moved in. When we arrived, he tried to give us just one cupboard and just one fridge shelf for both of us to use, despite the fact that there were 6 cupboards and 5 shelves. When we pushed back, he got annoyed, and eventually we took space for ourselves, but he retaliated by throwing away communal items, which might lead to extra charges for all of us. The house is spotless, yet this guy is constantly complaining. He says that we can't leave wet sponges in the sink, and they have to be in my cupboard despite the damp smell. I'm also not allowed to use the drying rack for any of the plates. I can't leave leftovers in the kitchen, but also can't have more fridge space. He also suggested storing food in my room, which I refused. He complained about a bin being half full while we were out for 2 days, and yet he refused to empty it himself. Once, he sent a long rant about a single crumb in the kitchen. His messages are long-winded and often feel targeted towards me and my partner, even though the other 25-year-old is messier than all of us. I eventually snapped and I told him that he needs to adjust his tone, but he claimed that these rules are due to his OCD, but they are excessive, and I'm tired of being hounded all the time. We've also tried to be accommodating. No personal belongings in the communal areas, no guests, and keeping everything spotless. And yet still, the constant messaging and lack of compromise is honestly exhausting. I want to say to him, hey, I've tried to be accommodating, but your constant passive aggressiveness and your strict rules are becoming ridiculous. Our home is very clean, and it's unfortunate if it doesn't meet your standards due to your OCD. However, you can't expect the rest of us to cater to your every need, especially when it comes to communal space. When you sign up for a house share, compromise is necessary. I also feel the way that you address me but not my partner or the 25-year-old male that shares the house with us is incredibly sexist and domineering, which I don't appreciate. So please, let's work towards a middle ground. I honestly want to say all this to this guy, but I don't know if I would be the jerk, because right now I really don't know what to do. Yeah, in my opinion, the second anyone's like, you have to follow the rules, my OCD says so, like at that point, I'm gonna get really angry and very frustrated. Because here's the thing, your OCD is your problem, not mine. That is something for him to figure out, and not something that you should be held to as if it's the word of God. Like seriously, the way he's acting is crazy and there's no good excuse for it. Because there are people in my life that have OCD, but they never act like this. They have ways of like keeping things in check, and they've taken the steps to like take care of themselves and make it not so much of an issue. But in my opinion, it doesn't seem like your roommate's doing that at all. Instead, he's like externalizing it and being like, wow, you have gotta follow my rules. Like, is this guy the landlord for some reason? Like, what's going on? So no, you would not be the jerk for telling this guy exactly how it is, because his behavior, in my opinion, is completely out of line. Am I the jerk for telling my sister no after she once again asked me for money? Because after funding so many projects that she's given up on, I now feel very badly about telling her no, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my younger sister and I are both in our 20s. A few years ago, I moved out, I went to school and started off well for myself. I got myself a 2-bedroom apartment, and I am basically well off. I'm now married, and my partner and I recently welcomed a baby. Because I wanted to be a stay-at-home parent, I'm not bringing in any money, and I'm staying at home 100% of the time to bond with our baby before they go to kindergarten. My partner can afford to take care of the bills without any kind of help, and if push comes to shove, we'll use my emergency fund. Well, this is where the issues start. My sister still lives with my mom, and before we welcomed our baby, I was basically my sister's bank. Whatever she needed, I would pay for, and she would start something new only to quit again after a while. Over the course of the years, I felt taken advantage of, but I would do it anyways. She is my sister, and I love her, and I honestly hope that the next thing would stick. I told her I couldn't do it anymore because babies are pricey, and she had my mom and dad pay for stuff. Recently, she started working at a low-paying job, and she mentioned needing money for another project yet again, but I told her that I couldn't do it, and my parents delayed paying for it. I felt bad and thought I'd give her part of my savings, till I heard she got herself a new iPhone. Now, at this point, I flipped out, because her phone was in perfectly good shape, and she certainly didn't need a $1,000 phone. She thinks that I'm being a jerk, because I had said I would give her my savings, but why should I use my own money when she's getting herself a new phone? I told her if it was that important, she would have paid for it herself, but then she went on about how she doesn't earn that much money. Part of me wants to just give it to her, because then my parents won't have to fund her, but a bigger part of me is upset, because they are enabling her, and I don't want to enable her out of my own pocket. I had to pay for my own school and juggle work and school to save money, so I really think this is unfair. Part of the issue is also that she doesn't look for me or text me unless I text text her first. Now, I have addressed this, and her reasoning is always about, well, I was about to, but then months can go by, and when I text her that, suddenly a response will come in. So truly, am I the jerk for telling my sister no? Because right now, I feel really bad and I don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for saying no, but I do think you're a fool if you let this continue. Seriously, it can't be more obvious that your sister is using you for money. She literally only comes to you whenever she needs something, and she doesn't like message you or text you outside of that. And that, in my opinion, is like textbook manipulation and just her taking advantage of you. So no, you're not the jerk for telling your sister no, and in my opinion, it's time to maybe stand up for yourself. Because if you're not careful, this behavior absolutely will continue. Am I the jerk for not giving my dad the birthday gift that he asked for? Because right now, my parents are in a big argument over it, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So last week was my dad's birthday, and I usually like to get him something nice. My parents immigrated to Western Europe when I was a small child so that they could provide us with a better life, even though they earn minimum wage. 5 years ago, I graduated from the best engineering university in the country, so I've been fortunate to have a good financial situation. I enjoy spoiling them as a way to thank them for their support on their birthdays and at Christmas. For example, last year I knew my mom wanted to go on a trip with her friends, but didn't have the money to do it, so I covered the cost of her flight and hotel. This year, I asked my dad what he wanted for his birthday, and being a simple man, he said he wanted a new vape. After thinking it over, I decided against buying him the vape. I've tried to help him quit several times, but have accepted that it's unlikely to happen. However, I don't feel right about actively supporting his addictions. So instead, I got him a new tablet because I knew that he was still using his old one, which had a broken screen. And the tablet ended up being a lot more expensive than the vape. Well, when I gave him the gift, he seemed really agitated. He took me aside and expressed his gratitude, but questioned why I chose such an expensive item instead of the cheaper one that he wanted. He acknowledged that the tablet was nice, but mentions that he needs to buy a new vape this year, and he anticipates a big fight with my mom if he buys the one he likes. He then asked me to return the tablet and exchange it for the vape. Well, I told him that I was sorry, but I just couldn't do it. I can't be the one paying for the toxic chemicals that are slowly harming you. You can ask for anything else, but I can't provide that. We then had a small argument over it, and then we went back inside to celebrate. Well, today, my younger sister, who still lives at home, messaged me to say that mom and dad are fighting over dad's new vape. She then asked me why I was being so stubborn and didn't just get it for him. I explained my reasons to her, but she thought that I was being unreasonable since he was going to get the vape anyways. Unfortunately, it seems they will be fighting about this for a couple of weeks. I've been reflecting on my decision for a while, and I'm now starting to have doubts. I want him to be healthy, but I can't help but wonder if my choice was selfish. He still has the vape, and it seems I'm the only one who benefited because I managed to keep my conscience clear. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, maybe I'm wrong here, but I really don't think you're the jerk here because I completely understand your reasoning. You don't like the fact that he's vaping, and you feel like this is a horrible addiction and it's ruining his life. So you decided, okay, I'm just gonna get you a tablet instead, and that's that. So from that perspective, I understand why you did it, and I don't think you're the wrong for choosing to do that. You don't want to support that addiction. And sure, he got the vape that he wanted either way, but it didn't come out of your pocket. And that, in my opinion, is a big deal. Because sure, he can try and guilt trip you and be like, oh, I'm gonna get it anyways, and it's gonna cause a big argument. You need to buy this for me. And it's like, no, I'm sorry, that's not gonna happen. You still have the choice of whether you want to buy it or not, and I'm not responsible for if you do buy it. Like, that kind of reasoning from your dad is so twisted, it's not even funny. So no, I don't think you're the jerk here, because it really seems like your intentions were in the right place. Am I the jerk for telling tourists not to park near my house after they parked their SUV literally a foot away from my house? Because right now, I'm incredibly frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my parents' house is located near Roman historical ruins and is considered a tourist visiting location. It's a long aqueduct, and part of it runs like 30 feet away from my house. Well, this family of tourists with their kids decided they wanted to sightsee these ruins, and many tourists do every year as well. So honestly, so far so good. The thing is, they parked their SUV like a foot away from my parents' house, and this is on the road, by the way. I was gardening at the time, and I heard them all talking going out of the vehicle, so I went out to them and I asked if they came out to visit our family, to which the father answered that no, they just want to see the ruins. Well, I told him if that's the case, then this isn't a parking spot, to which he answered it's only going to take half a minute and then they'll leave, even though as a side note, it wasn't half a minute. He then tried to say that it's not bothering anyone if it's on the road, so I told him that a road isn't a parking place. He then said that he understands, and then turned away to his business to show that he was ignoring me. I told him that it's clear he doesn't understand, but whatever, and then I returned home. So right now, I really feel like a Karen, but it's also the fact that most tourists park outside our village entirely, or they go far enough into the ruins as to not be parked where people live. But he decided that my fence was good to park near. It honestly doesn't really bother anyone because it's actually very boring here as it is, but it's the fact that he didn't try to understand my perspective at all that really truly annoyed me. He could have asked if there's a parking spot around or if there's anywhere they can stand around that isn't a living area. I would have answered him, and in retrospect even told him that he can stay off the road away from my house, but he still stuck to his own agenda. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I don't know the specifics of like where you live or like the laws when it comes to parking on a public road, but from my perspective, as someone who does live in a country where yes, you typically can park on the side of the road, even if it is in front of somebody else's house, like in my opinion, I really do think that you are the jerk here. Sure, they could have parked anywhere else, but guess what? Just because they parked in front of your house doesn't mean that they're like taking a shot at you. And you're trying to argue, wow, you shouldn't park in front of my house. But the counter argument is literally, oh, you mean the public road? The road that is literally available to anybody to use and do whatever they want on? You mean that road? Like seriously, this is not a private driveway. And from the sounds of it, it's not like they're parking on your front yard. So seriously, like what's the problem here? They were not bothering you. They weren't even on your property. So for you to be like, wow, you need to move, you're being inconsiderate. It's like, no, they're actually not doing anything wrong. They're parking off to the side of a public road. And unless there's some kind of restriction that like blocks people from parking in that area, then in my opinion, these people are well within their right to park wherever they want. My parents absolutely hate my boyfriend simply because he has a 3-year-old son, and they have now chosen to say that they will never support him if we ever get married. And at this point, I am so hurt that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I have been dating for almost a year now. I am extremely happy with him, and he treats me so well. It's been an absolute dream being with him. He's the perfect man, and I can't see my life without him. And our relationship has been amazing. A few weeks into us talking, I had a feeling that we would be official, so I told my parents about him and also told them that he has a 3-year-old son. Well, they were initially stumped and told me that they aren't the biggest fans, but they were overall kind about it and said that it's my life so I can choose what I want to do. I listened to them and I kept it in my mind, but I decided to continue our relationship. After they realized that I wasn't ending things with him, they became much more cold and incredibly rude to me. They told me they don't understand why I told them if they were going to say they don't approve and I just decided to continue the relationship. They said they'll never give us their blessing to marry, they'll never have us at events together, and they're mourning the loss of their relationship with their daughter and all this other stuff. They have also told me that I'm straining their marriage. They've sacrificed so much for me just to throw it in their face, and now they're even making rude comments by calling me stepmommy in a condescending tone. Initially, I did try my best to have them meet and open a conversation for us to talk about it. I would be open and tell them where I'm going with him, if I'm staying at his place, or where I got my flowers from. For reference, he's gotten me flowers every month since we've started dating. But eventually, they told me they don't want to hear about it or see him. So I stopped telling them where I'm going completely. I spend much less time at home because of the tension, silent treatment, or rude behavior. It feels like a lose-lose telling them everything and trying to find a solution or just leaving them alone. I currently live with them, and I'm saving up to move out and be fully financially independent. In fact, they have already thrown finances in my face, mentioning how they pay my insurance and I live under their roof, which I completely agree. So the best thing to do would be to move out and at least get rid of one argument they might have. There's constant tension in the house with them, and whenever they seem okay, it's because I just go straight to work and home. Every other month we seem to argue about all of this, but I've honestly become so tired. The arguments are full of harsh remarks, as well as condescending comments about how I make stupid decisions, how I'm ruining the family, and they will never accept us and never attempt to. They've also said when our family doesn't like someone, they will just completely outcast them, and that's just how it is. So it's my decision to date him or be a part of the family. They then go on a list of all the family members they avoid because they don't like them or their partner. My mom also mentions her personal issues from the past, from when she grew up with having divorced parents, stating that this will not allow her to accept my relationship or be involved in my life. My parents have an us versus them mentality with the rest of my family and credit all of their issues to that. When I have spoken up about how that may not be the healthiest thing and how it makes no sense to love me unconditionally and then do the same to me, I'm just told that's the way our family works. I have tried many times to have a conversation, and I have been outspoken about how they don't talk to me to actually discuss things, but rather they just want to yell at me. I've said I don't feel comfortable at home, considered, or seen as a person. All of that to then lead to more accusing, yelling, and bullying. At this point, I know I haven't treated them the best recently because I have built so much resentment for them them as well. And I would rather not, but at the same time, I can't try to be happy in the house knowing their kindness and love feels conditional. What should I do? Okay, let me just say first and foremost, your parents are absolutely awful. The way they're treating you is not normal, and the fact that they're trying to be like, oh, this is how family acts. If we don't like them, we cut them off. Like, that is not how it works at all. I can understand if there's some kind of like actual issue going on, or like some reoccurring bad behavior that would make someone like cut off a family member, but for your parents to be like, wow, we don't like their partner, we're never talking to them ever again. Like, that really is so extreme, it's not even funny. And that is not the way a normal family acts. So for your parents to be like, oh, your partner has a kid, we automatically hate him and we will never accept him. Like, that doesn't say anything about you or your partner, but instead it says a lot about them. Because I really am convinced they will do this to anybody that you try to date. Anyone you try to bring into your family, they will get the same type of treatment. These people just don't sound like they can ever be happy. And in my opinion, it's not your job to figure that out for them. So truly, I hope this works out for you, and I also hope you're able to move out and move on with your life, because your parents sound like a nightmare to live with. My entitled Karen of a neighbor is constantly complaining about where I park my car, claiming that I'm violating a bunch of city ordinances by parking my car legally on the street. So I decided to get some revenge by quite literally turning the tables and getting her in trouble for parking in front of a fire hydrant. Here's what happened. Okay, so a couple of months ago, I had a run-in with the self-appointed homeowners association enforcer of my neighborhood, and for the sake of the story, we'll call her Linda. For context, I don't live in an HOA community, but Linda likes to pretend that we do. She's the kind of person who leaves passive-aggressive notes on the car, or knocks on the door to complain about lawn height, and even calls the city for violations that don't actually exist. The issue started because I parked my car on the street in front of my house, which is, by the way, perfectly legal, and I've been doing it for years without any complaints. But apparently, Linda decided that my car was an eyesore, and one day I found a note tucked under my windshield. The note said, "This is not a parking lot. Park in your driveway like a respectful neighbor. Don't make me involve the city." Now, the note annoyed me, but I shrugged it off and I kept parking where I always do. But apparently, that wasn't good enough for Linda, because the next time she confronted me in person, she said to me, "I've told you before, parking on the street is inconsiderate. You have a driveway and you need to use it." Well, I looked at her and I said, "It is legal to park here and I'm not blocking anything." Linda looked at me and said, "It doesn't matter. It's ugly and makes the neighborhood look bad. Park in your driveway or I will report you." So it was decided right then and there. Fine. If she really wants me to park in my driveway, then I will park in my driveway. But I will follow every single rule to the letter. You see, my driveway is small. If I could park my car in it, it blocks the sidewalk. Technically, it's against city ordinances to obstruct the sidewalks. So the next day, I pulled my car right into my driveway, perfectly centered. And guess what? It completely blocked the sidewalk. Well, it didn't take long for Linda to notice, as she marched up to my door, red-faced and furious. She said to me, "You can't block the sidewalk. That is illegal." I said to her, "Oh, I thought you wanted me to park in my driveway." Linda said to me, "Well, not like that. You need to park properly." But I responded by saying there's no other way to park in my driveway without blocking the sidewalk. So I guess I'll have to go back to parking on the street then. When I said this, her face was absolutely priceless. She sputtered for a moment before finally stomping off. Now, thinking that was the end of it, I parked my car back on the street, but no, Linda wasn't done yet, because she actually called the city on me. A week later, a city inspector came by and he checked out the situation at hand. He saw that my car was legally parked on the street and told me that I was doing nothing wrong. However, he did mention that Linda had made several complaints about code violations in the neighborhood, and they were getting tired of her nonsense. So after that, I didn't hear from Linda for a while. Well, that is until last week, when she started parking her car on the street in front of my house. So I did what any good neighbor would do. I called the city and I reported it. It turns out her car was just slightly too close to the fire hydrant, resulting in her getting a ticket. So truly, this revenge felt so sweet, because the way she treated me was so uncalled for. Yeah, this lady was completely out of line. Like, seriously, why would you act like that towards your neighbor? The car wasn't bothering anybody. You were literally just trying to park your car in a place that it will fit. The driveway's out of the question because it blocks part of the sidewalk. So it's like, okay, lady, what do you want? Because you can't possibly report me for everything. Like, that's just insane. But through it all, I'm so glad that you reported her for parking in front of a fire hydrant, because that is some beautiful karma working its magic in the best way possible. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for not wanting to see my nephew nephew after his blatantly rude behavior on Thanksgiving. Because right now, my family's going through a stressful moment, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my partner unexpectedly lost a sibling 2 weeks ago and has been across the country taking care of post-life affairs since the death. His cause of death is undetermined, and it has been very stressful, and the grief is real. My partner spent 3 days driving back home across the country with no heat, breaking down the day before Thanksgiving, and having to repair the vehicle en route. Hence, it was a very stressful trip. His nephew, who lives in town, had passively asked if we were having Thanksgiving dinner. Now, we weren't going to do it because of the stress and recent emotional overwhelming situation, and because I have an autoimmune disorder, and I am on a very restricted diet that doesn't include most Thanksgiving Day treats. But we decided to celebrate it on Friday when my partner got home, because it appeared that my nephew really wanted to. My nephew and his girlfriend stated that Friday would be our choice rather than Saturday. I spent days running around to 5 different stores, purchasing all the food, as well as cooking and cleaning it all by myself. We had turkey, homemade stuffing, homemade bread, sweet potato pie, mashed potatoes, roasted carrots, and potatoes, including squash, salad, cookies. I mean, you name it, we had it. My nephew and his girlfriend were aware that dinner would be served at 4:00 p.m. Well, at 3 o'clock, I received a text message saying that my nephew's girlfriend couldn't make it because she got thrown extra work that day, even though it was remote and wasn't time dependent. And I'm not even sure if I believe that was true. Well, my nephew arrived at 4:01 p.m. and he literally brought a leftover lamb chop from his girlfriend's family's Thanksgiving dinner the day before, which is really ironic if you think about it. I didn't have the best timing, so dinner was ready a little bit early, and at that point, half of it was cold. We loaded our plates and we ate. My nephew dominated the conversation the entire time, talking about himself. He never once asked how either of us were doing, how my partner's trip was, nor asked about his dead uncle. As a side note, my nephew is an only child with no cousins and only has 2 uncles, but now he only has 1. Hence, the family is very small. At one point, I just stopped the one-sided conversation and I point blank asked him, "Do you have any questions about your uncle?" He then asked a few questions and we gave him some items that he inherited. He was then putting his shoes on and preparing to leave within an hour and 15 minutes after arriving. I had offered some leftovers and a portion of banana bread that I made, but he grabbed the entire loaf of bread and shoved it in his bag, along with the majority of the Thanksgiving leftovers. Now, I made a few direct comments, but they were just laughed off, and he was out the door in under 2 hours, and I don't even remember him saying thank you. I spent more time planning, prepping, and baking the banana bread alone than he spent with us, and neither of us even wanted to celebrate this year in the first place. This is not the first time Thanksgiving has fallen completely on me without any appreciation or acknowledgement. I used to enjoy Thanksgiving, but not recently. This is also not the first time my nephew has acted self-centered. My partner is so overwhelmed at the moment that I just don't think it's a good idea that I say anything to him about being upset and angry, because in all actuality, I'm livid. However, I'm struggling to comprehend whether this is my personal issue or if I have a valid reason to be upset. Right now, I don't want to see my nephew for a while, and I'm seriously contemplating canceling Christmas, because right now I'm incredibly offended and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, your nephew is a self-centered piece of garbage. This guy literally only did this so that he could get some free food. Like, that's the only reason he's like, "Wait, are you guys having dinner too?" He didn't care that his uncle passed away or anything like that. He didn't care that his only living uncle had to drive across the country to take care of this stressful moment. This guy only wanted some free food out of you two, and that honestly is mind-blowing, especially considering the fact that he literally had Thanksgiving dinner the day before. Like, this guy rolled up with some lamb chops that were half eaten. Like, seriously, what's his problem? So no, I don't think you're the jerk for not wanting to see him again, because the way your nephew acted, in my opinion, is incredibly rude. Am I the jerk for unknowingly ordering food from my boyfriend that he's allergic to, and as a result, effectively ruining our road trip? Because right now, he is refusing to talk to me, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my boyfriend and I are on a road trip right now, and things have gone completely wrong. I feel awful, but I'm also really confused about whether I'm actually to blame. Earlier today, after hours of driving, we stopped at McDonald's for dinner. My boyfriend was really irritable, and he gets this way when he's tired, and he didn't even want to look at the menu. He just sighed and said, "Can you please handle this? Get me something normal." Now, I didn't want to make things worse, so I quickly ordered him a crispy chicken sandwich meal, and I figured that it was a safe choice. We ate in the car on the way to our hotel, and about halfway through his sandwich, he suddenly asked me, me, "Did this bun have sesame seeds on it?" And honestly, I did not even think about that in the first place. But sure enough, the bun did. He then got really upset and said that he's allergic to sesame seeds, which is something I had no idea about because he has never mentioned it to me in the year that we've been dating. He said his throat felt a bit itchy, but took an antihistamine and said he would be fine. I apologized repeatedly, and I offered to stop somewhere to get him different food, but he just stared out the window and ignored me the rest of the drive to the hotel. And the silence was unbearable, and I kept feeling worse and worse. When we got to the hotel, he barely spoke to me, but then he said that he needed some air and then he left the room. That was over 3 hours ago, and he is still not back. I've called him multiple times, but he's still not picking up, and now I'm sitting here spiraling. I get that I made a mistake, but how was I supposed to know about an allergy that he never told me about? He made me order for him, and he didn't give me any instructions, so it feels unfair to put all the blame on me. At the same time, I can't shake the feeling that I should have been more careful and checked the bun or asked about his allergies just to be safe. So am I the jerk in this situation, or is he by overreacting and disappearing for hours and not answering my calls? I'm honestly freaking out right now, and I seriously don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here, your boyfriend's an idiot. If he really has some kind of allergy to sesame seeds, and he knew you two were eating at McDonald's, you know, a place notorious for putting sesame seeds on their buns, then he absolutely should have spoken up and said, "Hey, by the way, I'm allergic to sesame seeds, so please try to get accommodations for that before you get my food." And it sounds like this is food that can like really affect his breathing, so like this guy was just asking to have some kind of allergic reaction, and that literally, in my opinion, is not your fault. Because seriously, how could you have possibly have known that this would have caused him problems? He's never said anything about this, and you had no idea this was a thing. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because the way your boyfriend acted, in my opinion, is incredibly irresponsible. Am I the jerk for telling my neighbor to move his newly planted trees that are literally all over my property? Because right now he's pissed off, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So a few months ago, my neighbor approached us and said he wanted to plant a row of fir trees between our yards. We expressed some concern, specifically in the area closer to our house where it is dark, which is also a place that we have trouble growing grass, and we wanted to plant something smaller in our bed there. These trees will grow quite large and wide, and they are not what we want for our yard. But then our neighbor said they would be planted on his property, and we just said whatever. It's his property and he wasn't asking for money, so fine, go for it. We were working from home when the landscapers were planting the trees, and we briefly went out to look at the progress and noticed that the holes were large, but it was hard to tell where the tree would end up, and we just didn't protest. However, once they were fully planted, we noticed that several of the trees appeared to encroach on our property, specifically several in the areas that we had concerns about. We notified our neighbor about our concerns right away, and he was open to moving some of the trees and wanted to know which ones and to where. Since we didn't know exactly where the property line was, we said we wanted to get a survey to be better informed. Well, he asked that we do this as soon as possible because it was late autumn, and he wanted to be able to move the trees before it got too cold. We called a surveyor immediately, but due to their schedule, it was a month before we had the final survey report, which cost us a total of $3,000. When we got it, the survey showed that out of the 12 new trees, 6 were on our property, 4 of them are right on the line, and 1 is very close with branches substantially growing onto our property, basically meaning that only 1 is fully on his land. When we sent him the plot plan and asked him to remove all 11 trees planted on or growing onto our property, understandably, he got really upset. He was pissed off by our request and the timing of it. He would say stuff like, "Well, why didn't you tell me sooner? Now I'm gonna have to pay twice. You guys are terrible people. I'm just gonna put up a fence anyways." So truly, with all things considered, am I the jerk for asking him to move his trees fully onto his property line, especially in the cases where the trunks might be right on the line? We are considering offering to pay half the removal cost, but really at this point, we don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk for telling this guy to move his stuff. This guy's an idiot for not getting this surveyed before he did it. You mean to tell me that he planted trees and didn't do anything to make sure that it's not on your property? Because this guy completely missed the mark. Nearly all the trees except for like 1 is like in a place that covers your property. That really is the dumbest decision he could have possibly made. So any kind of aggression he has towards you, he really should be directing at himself. Because if he really wanted to do this right the first time, he would have gotten a surveyor to make sure that he did it right. Am I the jerk for not saving the house my grandma is trying to sell off, also that my brother can live in it? Because after being promised that I would own this house, it seems like my entire family is going back on their word, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 25-year-old female, and my mom, my grandma, and my great-grandpa all live on the same property. My mom and my grandma share a house, and my great-grandpa had his own next door. He sadly passed away 2 years ago, and the house went to my grandma. Now, even before my great-grandpa dies, we talked that I would one day buy the house and half the property off my grandma. We initially expected that would be when I'm around 30 years old, but you can't really predict the death of a loved one that precisely. I had recently moved to a different city to be with my boyfriend, but he also agreed that we would move back once we were ready to settle down. While my grandma was grieving and contemplating if she wants to sell, my mom suggested that my little brother, who we will call Luke, as well as his girlfriend, who we will call Emma, move in temporarily so they can have some privacy and in turn keep up with the chores so the house stays in good condition. Well, this year, my grandma said that she wants to sell the house next year and she needs the money for her own renovation. Yesterday, I visited my family and grandma, my mom, and I set a date to discuss how we will proceed. But that's when my brother interrupted, saying that he should be there as well, as he also has an interest in the house. Now, this was the first I've ever heard of this, but apparently my mom knew about this because she said our main concern should be keeping the house in the family and that him and I can discuss at a later time who will live in it and to buy my grandma out. Well, I told them that I intended to let Luke and Emma live there for free for the next few years, as I still want to focus on my career before settling down, but I would not invest in something I don't intend to make my own one day. Property is expensive, and my boyfriend and I want to start investing now before there are any major financial responsibilities involved. Well, my brother argued that him and Emma live there for some time now, and that it's unfair to expect them to just leave once I decide I want to move back. But I told him that the alternative is to either pay the whole sum next year, or our grandma will sell it to some stranger. Now, my brother and mom both called me a jerk for being selfish, saying I would get the money back if he wanted to buy it from me, but for me, it's also about the cuts in my lifestyle. It would mean tightening our budget to pay off the loan, and effectively losing money due to inflation. But it's true that I would be the only one able to pay my grandma, so the house isn't sold to strangers. I don't want it to not stay in the family either, but I feel they are putting an unfair expectation on me, and they're guilt-tripping me by calling me a jerk. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because this clearly is supposed to go to you. The fact that your brother and his girlfriend are being like, oh, well, we've lived here longer. You can't expect us just to leave, do you? It's like, yes, if I own the house, absolutely. I'll give you time to move out, but I'm absolutely moving in there someday. So I really think the alternatives you've presented are completely reasonable in my opinion, because for them to be like, oh, wow, you're selfish, in my opinion, is incredibly rude in and of itself. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my brother borrow my car for his emergency, even though he's in a tight spot with his car breaking down? Because after I said no, my brother freaked out on me, and now the entire family is turning against me, leaving me unsure what to do. Here's what happened. So I have a younger brother who we will call Ethan for the sake of the story, who is a bit irresponsible when it comes to finances and planning ahead. A few days ago, he called me in a panic because his car broke down, and he's telling me that he has an important job interview tomorrow, but he has no way to get there without his car. Now, here's the thing. I just bought a new car. I've been saving up for it for a long time, and I'm really careful about keeping it in good condition. And honestly, I don't feel comfortable letting anyone borrow it, especially Ethan. He's borrowed cars before and hasn't always been responsible with them. He once returned a rental car with a big dent in it and didn't tell them about it, which ended up costing him a lot to fix. And after that, I've been a little hesitant about lending him anything valuable. I told him I could help in other ways, like offering to drive him to his interview or helping him find a rental car, but he flat out refused to all of my other offers. He is now really upset, saying that I'm being selfish and not being there for him when he needs me the most. He's accusing me of not understanding how important the interview is, but honestly, I just don't feel comfortable risking damage to my new car, especially since it's my only means of transportation right now. Well, my parents are now calling me to tell me that I'm being too harsh and that I should be more understanding of the situation. I feel I've made my point clear, but I'm starting to second guess myself because they seem to think that I'm being unreasonable. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. You literally offered to drive Ethan to the interview yourself. Like, what's the problem here? Isn't that problem solved? You even said, hey, I'll help you find a rental car. So it makes me wonder, okay, why do you really want this new car? Because I think it's not about him actually going to a job interview. Instead, I think he wants to use it for personal reasons, and that's it. So for him to call you selfish after you said, hey, I'll drive you to your interview, I will literally help you find a rental car or anything else, like that is super sketchy and really disrespectful. So no, you're not the jerk, because in my opinion, Ethan clearly has ulterior motives. My ex is accusing me of cheating after I moved on, and now she wants to contact my girlfriend and let her know exactly what she thinks is happening. Because right now, I feel like I messed up in a big way, way, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for the past 2 years, there was a girl that I was dating. We were officially in university. I started working in February earlier this year, and around then, we had a fight. At the time, there was a lot going on personally, and I did not respond to her. We basically stopped talking for weeks that eventually turned into months, and mentally, I accepted that this was the end of our relationship and assumed we had broken up without having a conversation with her and ending it formally. I moved on mentally, and I went about my life as though we had, assuming that it was implied and spelt out from the no contact. We spoke here and there, but it would not be considered as reaching out to each other. Now, there was someone else that I met around the same time in February, and although there was nothing at the time, it developed much later in the year, and I pursued a relationship with her. When she would ask about my previous girlfriend, I would always brush it off and not even give her a name because I think subconsciously I didn't want to tell her. I'm going to tell her later today, but I'm not sure what the reaction will be because I really see a future with this person. Yesterday, I had to visit my ex to return something that she asked for, and that was the first time that we saw each other and properly spoke in months. It's also when I verbalized that we've been over in my head for a long time. However, when I said that, she flipped out and took it as the fact that this new person was the reason why we didn't speak, even though the whole time I had moved on, and that's how I pursued this relationship with my current girlfriend. We have been very public, and I've been very vocal about the future that I want to have with her. Well, today she sent me a screenshot saying that my ex had requested to follow her. I suspect that my ex wants to tell her everything that had happened, and in our conversation yesterday, she said that she was cheated on even though that wasn't the case at all. So truly, how do I address the situation? Am I valid in feeling that she is being unreasonable? What should I do? Okay, honestly, this is so immature because this should have been handled way better. You don't just ghost someone and be like, okay, I guess we're broken up. I'm gonna get a new girlfriend, because this is literally how they're gonna react. Like, I'm not saying your girlfriend's actions were like reasonable in any way, but the fact that you moved on without like properly saying, hey, I'm breaking up with you, in my opinion, is crazy. Like, that really is not okay. The better thing to do would be like, I don't know, call her and message her or do something just to say, hey, we're breaking up and I don't want to be with you. Because sure, it was probably nice for you to move on without any kind of effort or having that weird conversation that you know is looming in the background. But guess what? Your ex-girlfriend is now like, oh wow, you cheated on me, even though in your head you moved on. Like, there are some major communication issues in this story. It's honestly just so disturbing. So truly, I hope you find a miracle in some kind of way of working this out, because what you've gotten yourself into, in my opinion, absolutely could have been avoided. My entitled toxic ex-boyfriend secretly used the flight and hotel that I had paid for that we were going to use to go to Iceland together. So I decided to get some revenge by canceling his return flight home. And now as a result, his entire family has turned against me. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so pretty much, my ex-boyfriend broke up with me a month before moving in and 3 weeks before an Iceland trip I planned for us, because apparently I was emotionally draining because I was still struggling with some things that he had done to me before we started dating officially. Not to mention the fact that I also got a really scary message from his ex when we started dating saying that he would love bomb me and then leave me. And you know what? He treated me really great for the first few months of our relationship. He took me to Hawaii, he booked a trip to Japan for us next May, he got me a nice promise ring, he told his family that he would marry me and that they wanted us to get married in December. He even wrote me a card 5 days before breaking up with me about how I was the love of his life and that we were getting married soon and I was his forever and nothing would ever get in our way. Well, after a bad week of breakdowns and anxiety attacks about the past, he called me and broke up with me, yelling at me over the phone as I cried and pleaded how he promised to give me as much time as I needed to get over it. I was devastated, but I tried to be understanding, and I reached out to him multiple times to discuss what to do about the trip, as well as to arrange a time to pick up my things. Well, he didn't respond to any of my messages or give me any direct answers, and I didn't know what was going to happen with the trip that we had planned together. Well, without telling me, he decided to go on the trip alone, using the flight and the hotel that I had paid for. I wasn't even given a chance to go, and now I'm left carrying the full cost of what was meant to be a shared experience. I feel hurt and taken advantage of. This trip was supposed to be something we'd experienced together, not a solo vacation for him on my dime. Emotionally and financially, this has been incredibly hard for me. It feels like my kindness and generosity were taken advantage of, and I'm left with all the expenses and none of the experience. I told him how he had 24 hours to figure something out with me, and I even reached out to his mom, as we are extremely close, pleading that this has been really hard for me, but in the end, neither of them answered me. Now, everyone told me I should just cancel his return flight So you know what? That's exactly what I did. I wrote him a huge long message explaining how the situation made me feel, because every other message before that had been me being nice and wanting to work things out. But him going on the trip that I paid for really changed my opinion on the whole ordeal. As a result, his entire family blocked me, plus he blocked me as well, with his little sister even texting me saying that she thinks I'm crazy. So am I the jerk for canceling my ex's return flight after he went on this trip on my dime? Because right now I really don't know what to do. Oh man, this is really sketchy because that guy is a massive loser. First of all, you should have canceled that stuff the second he broke up with you. Like that would have been the first thing I did, because this guy did exactly what his ex said he would do. He pretended to love you for several months, he took you all over the world and professed his love for you, and then he dropped you off with no remorse. And then on top of that, he took this trip overseas without you, basically deciding that he's gonna do this whether you like it or not. Like that's crazy in my opinion, and that is so uncalled for. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, and the fact that your ex-boyfriend would do this in the first place, in my opinion, is unbelievably toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to hand over my grandmother's jewelry to my cousin, who claims that she's the rightful heir to it, regardless of what my grandmother's will states? Because right now, after telling her no, my family is split down the middle, putting me in a position where honestly, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my grandmother passed away last year, and she left me a beautiful jewelry collection in her will. Growing up, I was very close to her, and we spent countless weekends together where she would let me try on her pieces. It always felt like our little thing. So when she left them to me, I was deeply touched. But this is where things get a little bit more complicated. My cousin, let's call her Emma, insists that my grandmother verbally promised her the collection years ago, even though there's no mention of her in the will. Emma claims that the jewelry is hers by right because she was the oldest grandchild and used to model the pieces during family events when she was younger. She's even told everyone that my grandmother's decision must have been a mistake or made under pressure. Emma called me last week demanding I hand the jewelry over to honor what she says was my grandmother's real wish. When I said no, she called me selfish and accused me of stealing what was meant for her. My family is now divided, with some people saying that I should just give Emma a few pieces to keep the peace, and others telling me to hold my ground because the will was clear. Emma is now posting passive-aggressive messages on social media, making me out to be the villain. I feel terrible because I don't want to cause family drama, but I also believe my grandmother knew exactly what she was doing when she left the collection to me. So am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, this story is really upsetting for a few reasons, but mostly it's the way that Emma is treating you and tried to make herself out to be the victim in this situation. For starters, no, you're definitely not the jerk. And if I was in your place, I would be holding my ground. Like Emma is never getting a single piece of jewelry as long as I'm alive. And the fact that any family member is like, oh, just give her a few to make her happy, or even implying that you might be the problem in this scenario, in my opinion, is so toxic it's not even funny. These people are literally enabling Emma's awful behavior by being like, oh, come on, if you just give her a few pieces of jewelry, she'll calm down. But it's like, no, Emma's trying to scam you out of something that was left in the will for you specifically. Like this verbal agreement means nothing. It's in writing that this goes to you. And please don't get it twisted. You're not causing any kind of drama. You didn't start this. This is all Emma just stirring up the pot. She's just mad that she didn't get the jewelry that her grandmother had, and now she's taking it out on you as if it's your fault. But here's the facts. The grandma clearly didn't like Emma enough to give it to her, so she gave it to you instead. And from the sounds of it, it has a better home with you than it will ever have with Emma. She would probably sell it off the second she has it and make a quick buck. So no, you're not the jerk because in my opinion, Emma sounds incredibly entitled. Today, I got to yell at a customer who was treating my servers like garbage, as she didn't realize that I was the owner of the restaurant that she was eating at. And I've honestly never felt better to snap at someone like that because this was something I don't get to do that often. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm the owner and general manager of this restaurant, and yesterday, a couple came in just before the dinner rush arrived, and the woman of this couple was being difficult from the moment they arrived. They order food, and the woman got upset when they brought it all out at the same time. Apparently, she wanted the soup first, then the basket of fries, and then the other appetizers that they ordered. So it's like, alright, that's not the end of the world. It had gotten busy, so we were able to use the food items to sell other tickets up to that moment. Then, approximately 20 minutes later, I brought out their remade appetizer and fries, and before I even had a chance to set the food down on the table, this woman was irritated. She insisted the food was not hot and had been sitting back there. I assured her that no, it definitely had not, and I watched and instructed the kitchen crew to remake the items, so they definitely are very hot. She then stuck her fingers in the food and said, "See, it's not hot. It's warm, but it's not sizzling." I said to her, "Ma'am, I assure you these items were made moments ago for you. They are fresh." She insisted on having them remade, and that's when I completely lost it. I told her if she wanted me to toss this perfectly good food and get another order, then she will be paying for it. She then asked me where I get off thinking that I could speak to her that way, and she said she had a stressful day and was wanting to go out just to eat and relax. I responded by saying, "Well, I'm actually the owner. I don't care how stressful or difficult your day was. It gives you no right to walk in here and be disrespectful to my staff and then me." So we remade the food again, and I dropped it off at the table, and she barely ate any of it, but did end up thanking me because it was definitely hot this time. When the poor server swung by to ask how the appetizers were, I guess the woman told her, "Well, my husband is acting like he's embarrassed of me, but he knows I'm right." Anyways, they did pay for all of it like I told them they had to, and their server still got a 20% tip. And at this point, I'm now patiently waiting to see if she leaves a review. But honestly, getting to snap back at someone felt really good, but it's not something I get to do very often. Oh man, when I worked in food service, I wanted to do this so many times, it's not even funny, dude. Like seriously, some people really suck in the restaurant business. Not just people in the kitchen, but some customers are just absolute nightmares. And the Karen in this story is no exception. She literally came in there with a bad attitude and was ready for some kind of argument. I mean, thank God the owner was one of the people that was helping out that day, because you know for a fact she would have asked for the manager or some kind of higher up just to chew them out. So good for you for putting this Karen in her place, because her attitude, in my opinion, was completely uncalled for. Am I the jerk for asking my mom to stop coming over unannounced to the house that I'm renting from her? Because right now it's making me and my new roommate incredibly uncomfortable. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've lived with my mom for most of my life, but last September, she remarried and moved in with her new husband. He lives 45 minutes away from my area, though my mom and her husband recently bought a house just one street away from mine. However, the new house is still under renovation, so it will be a while before they can live there. Well, here's the issue. For the past 2 months, I've had a new roommate who's also a friend of mine, and things have been going great. My roommate is kind and clean and easy to live with, even though she is a bit shy and takes time to warm up to people. But my mom, who owns the house, has been coming over unannounced. She will hang out in the house without letting us know beforehand, and sometimes even stays overnight, up to 2 nights a week, either on the couch or in the spare bedroom. This feels like a massive invasion of our privacy, especially my roommates. I feel awful for her, because where is it normal for a landlord to just live in the place they're renting out? I love having my own space, and this constant intrusion is a big reason why I wanted to move out of my mom's house in the first place. The tricky part is that I'm struggling to bring this up with her. We don't have the best relationship, and communicating with her has always been difficult. She's very much the type of person to say it's either my way or the highway. It also feels like I'd be kicking my own mom out, which makes me feel incredibly guilty. To make things even more complicated, my mom set some strict house rules. No drinking, no smoking, no boyfriends staying over, and no big parties. While I personally don't mind these rules, it's hard to find roommates who are okay with them. If my mom wants to keep renting the place and earning money, she needs to understand that she can't act like a live-in landlord. So would I be the jerk if I told my mom she needs to stop staying over at the house and that she needs to give me and my roommate some privacy? What should I do? No, you're not the jerk at all. Like, this is your place. You're renting it from her. For her to be staying overnight for like 2 days a week, or even like coming into your house unannounced, like that is really sketchy and not okay. She needs to understand that this is your space and you can do with it as you please, as long as you're paying the rent and respecting the property. Now, in my opinion, I think her house rules are really stupid, and it seems like she wants to have some kind of control over your life. The smoking and drinking part I can kind of understand, especially the smoking part, because that can like ruin furniture and make the house smell weird, but not being allowed to have your boyfriend over, like that is so weird. For reference, the original poster is 27 years old. They're hardly a teenager, and they're definitely not a kid anymore. So that rule just doesn't make any sense, and honestly, it just seems really out of line. So no, you would not be the jerk for having this conversation, because what she's doing right now, especially when you consider your new roommate, in my opinion, is incredibly inappropriate. My boyfriend's female best friend continues to create tension in our relationship, and after trying to talk to him about this so many different times, I now feel completely lost, as right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old female, and I've been dating my boyfriend for less than a year, and we're currently expecting our first child together. Since early on in our relationship, I've had concerns about his female best friend. I've expressed my discomfort with her multiple times, but he often dismisses or downplays my feelings. At the start of our relationship, I noticed that she would text him and call him at all hours. When I brought it up, it seemed like their communication decreased, but I can still tell that there they're in contact, I've told him that I feel like she's not respectful of our relationship. The last time I had an interaction with her, she spent the whole night trying to be by his side, even going as far as touching his arm right in front of me. When he told her that I was pregnant, her immediate reaction was to question if the child was even his. And she's also aware that I know this, but she's never apologized. She continues to seek him out and make plans with him, despite knowing that I don't like her. Recently, my boyfriend mentioned that he's planning something for his birthday, and he wants her to be there. Now, I haven't seen her in months, and I'm worried about keeping my composure if she's there. He told me that she's scared of me and thinks I might try to physically confront her, so it's clear that she knows I don't like her. I've made it clear that she's not invited to the baby shower, but it seems like he's unwilling to exclude her from his birthday celebration. Now, for additional context, they've been friends for about 3 years. When they first met, he had a crush on her, but he claims it's always been platonic between them, and has made remarks basically saying that it wouldn't work out because she is too dramatic in his eyes. He also acknowledged that the previous partner before me didn't like her either, and I'm unsure of what her reasons were, but I can only imagine that she lacked similar boundaries back then as well. So I'm honestly unsure how to handle this. I don't want to make a scene in front of his family, but I also don't know how I'll be able to stay calm. I don't want to give her the satisfaction of skipping his birthday, but honestly, she feels like a third wheel in our relationship. What should I do? Oh man, your boyfriend is absolutely at fault here. This guy is keeping this lady around for some stupid reason, and it's obviously creating tension in your relationship, but it also created tension in his previous relationship. Like seriously, what is this guy's problem? There's a difference between having a friend and someone who is actively antagonistic towards your girlfriend. Like he does know he's about to be a father, right? Like he literally is having a kid with you, and this other lady is like, oh, is that even your kid in the first place? Like what is going on right now? This is so weird to me, because right now it really seems like having this lady as a friend is way more important to this guy than your feelings about this. Like he truly is the problem here, and it honestly is so unfair. So truly, I'm so sorry that you're dealing with this, and hopefully all this gets worked out, because you do not deserve this in the slightest. Am I the jerk for doing things behind my folks' back as I'm trying to save up and get my life in order so that I can eventually move out of their house? Here's what happened. So I'm a woman in my mid-20s, and I'm currently living with my folks. We'll call them Sarah and George. They are in their mid to late 60s, and they took me in when I was a baby due to my mother, their daughter, having issues at the time. When I was younger, my folks were overprotective of me due to my mother having run away from home a few times and being a wild girl by going to parties, drinking, and all the other cliche rebellious stuff. They were afraid that I would do the same, but I wasn't bothered by this. The paranoia over me going to other people's houses did get bothersome at times, but it was fine. Then I started developing my own interests and beliefs, and they were not supportive, as they would commonly tell me to be in the real world, and then when I'd make friends, they would judge them like crazy. I couldn't have ambitions, wanting to one day be a police officer or an artist, anything of that sort. I would hear it all the time where they would say, you've got to be realistic. They still see me as a child, and it took them far too long to allow me to do anything. So I just started doing things without telling them to not result in conflict. They also have emotionally mistreated me, I think. They insult the way that I laugh, with my weight always being an issue for them, and my preference in clothing. They commonly shout at me for the most petty things, and I still flinch when I hear my name called by somebody. I pay to live in their house, and Sarah has been telling me I'll be staying with them indefinitely, basically saying that I'll get the house someday. Now, I was fine with that at first, so I didn't pay much mind for saving my money, but her attitude got worse though, starting when I was reorganizing my bedroom and locking my door for privacy. She would also get so angry if I took time off of work. I've even slept in my own car in a grocery store parking lot when I took approved time off of work, just so I didn't have to wake up to Sarah storming in and shouting at me. I am really scared of her, I hate to say it, but then I finally made the decision to start doing things for my health. I went to the doctor without telling Sarah or George, and I got a prescription that's been incredible for my health as of late. Then I went to the bank and I opened up a new account that only I can access. I've also been packing away my unnecessary items, like merchandise from games and shows that I like, and I've been looking for houses to learn what I'll need to be prepared for in the future. But overall, am I the jerk for doing all of these things in secret? I am terrified of how they will react when they find out. Inevitably, they'll know I'm moving when it happens, and Sarah probably will attempt to guilt trip me into staying with them. They might have a hard time without me around anymore, and they'll have no trust in me when they uncover the truth. What should I do? No, there is no reason for you to feel guilty about this, and I definitely do not think that you're the jerk here. You're trying to move on with your life. You're in your 20s and you don't want your family treating you like a child anymore. And the fact that you didn't even have your own bank account until recently, like that is really alarming, and I don't blame you for trying to save up and get out of there. So no, you're not the jerk for trying to make this step in your life, because this is a normal step to make. And if Sarah and George have a problem with that, then they quite literally are just gonna have to live with it. Am I the jerk for excluding my dad from my wedding after he decided to ghost me after he found out I got engaged? Because right now I'm really confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of backstory, 2.5 years ago, my older sister got into a really bad marriage, and it included all the horrible things that you can imagine. My dad was very supportive of the marriage and paid for almost everything for her. He picked her up on the wedding day, walked her down the aisle, and gave them a cute little speech. But they ended up getting divorced 6 months later. Well, I just got engaged to my now fiance after a 5-year relationship and a surprise baby, resulting now in a 4-year-old boy. Yep, you read that right. We have had our ups and downs, but we have reached the point of our relationship where everything seems right. Sure, we still have the occasional fight, but nothing serious ever. Maybe he left a trash can somewhere or forgot to load the dishwasher or something stupid. We are really solid, and everyone around us were just waiting for the news of our engagement. We have been calling each other wifey and hubby for years, so this change comes naturally to us. Before the proposal, my fiance had contacted my dad and told him that he would be asking me to marry him. Well, my dad had no comments and just ignored the entire thing. So my fiance contacted my mother instead and got her blessing. He then proposed on a family vacation with his entire family watching, and it really was a special moment. And I, of course, was overjoyed and wanted to share the news to my family immediately. So I texted them all, and again, there was no response from my dad, and that really hurt my feelings. Now, this was almost 3 months ago, and we just started planning our wedding. My sister talked me into going to my dad's house for dinner one night, and I agreed, and not one of them commented on the engagement, the ring, the wedding, how we were doing, or anything like that. In fact, my dad barely looked at me. So I decided to leave early, and once again, I was hurt. And for the first time ever, I didn't hug my dad when I left his house. So a couple days ago, I texted him to let him know that we started planning the wedding and what date, time, and place it was going to be at, and that I, of course, wanted them all to be there. And sure, this was an informal invitation, since they would be getting an actual invitation soon, but again, I got no response. So now, with all things considered, I decided that I don't want him to be a part of my wedding at all. He can be there as a guest, but he will not be asked to do any of the fatherly duties. Well, my family is freaking out about this decision and says I'm overreacting and that I need to give him time. My father-in-law will pick me up on the wedding day and drive me to the church, and he will be the one to walk me down the aisle. And he even promised to give a toast after I talked to him about my dad, because right now I feel betrayed, and I feel like there's a chance he might not show up at all, and I have no clue why. Also, why would he support my sister in her bad marriage and then just completely ignore me? Am I overthinking or overreacting? Should I really just give him time to come around? All of the comments from my family have gotten in my head, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all for not wanting your dad to be a part of your wedding. He's clearly giving you the silent treatment, and in my opinion, that speaks volumes to anything he could say or do. He's showing that he doesn't care about you and your wedding, and he's making it obvious that this is not a priority for him, and he's not going to have anything to do with it. So truly, I don't blame you. Like, this sounds like some really immature response to something that you literally have not even done. So no, I don't think you're the jerk, because the way your dad is acting, in my opinion, is completely irrational. My toxic younger brother uses his time as the best man at our other brother's wedding to make fun of me and mock me in front of the entire family. And after dealing with this for my entire life, I now feel like I'm at my breaking point, because this has gone on far too long. Here's what happened. Okay, so my youngest brother, let's call him Phil, got married today, and the ceremony was absolutely beautiful. His wife was stunning, and everything was great and well done. His best man was our other brother, who I will call Jack for the sake of the story. My wife and I aren't part of the wedding party, which is fair because we didn't ask them to be in ours 5 years ago. After the ceremony, we did the pictures and a cocktail hour, and it was nice to talk to some out-of-town family and old family friends. And Jack and I were talking about the day that they all had, and then everyone was called inside for the reception. We go in and have dinner, and my wife and I were starting to kind of get tired, but I told her I really wanted to hear Jack's best man speech, so we agreed to wait. And honestly, I wish that we didn't. Jack goes up, introduces himself, and starts his speech. He says, well, about 34 years ago, mom and dad got married and decided to try for kids, and they started with the prototype, my older brother. And at this point, I should have known where this was going. He continued by saying, they realized that, hey, they could do better than that, so they got it right the second time. Me, Mr. Perfect. And I was. Our grandfather would call me Crusher because I would beat up my older brother as a toddler. We were always opposites and didn't really get along a whole lot. So mom and dad decided they needed someone to help him out, and so they had this guy. Now when he came around, I was like, yeah, he seems alright. So growing up, we terrorized my older brother. Good times. Now Jack continued his speech, but at this point, I was kind of checked out. I was and still am really upset about it, because I have always been the butt of all the jokes in my family. My brothers, my cousins, even my parents. I'm the difficult one. I'm very emotional and empathetic, which is a blessing and a curse. I'm overweight and they're both athletes. And Phil actually works for an NHL team. I enjoy tabletop games, reading, and just being a nerd, whereas they like sports and outdoors activities. I think you basically get the idea. Well, I get up and my wife goes to the bathroom before we decide to just straight up leave. Jack then finds me and says to me, "Are you good? I meant to say at the beginning of my speech that I apologize because my older brother is probably gonna get upset." But I just look at him and I say, "You're good, but I would have appreciated a heads up that that's what you were gonna do." He then looks at me and just goes, "If I did that, I wouldn't have gotten the genuine reaction," and then just walked away. And at that point, I just met up with my wife and we left. So I asked her, am I being crazy right now? Was his best man speech really just a ton of shots at me? She said to me, "Well, it seems like he was trying to be funny, but not everything landed. And yes, you were most definitely the butt of the joke." After that, I drove home pretty much in silence. I'm tired of always being the butt of all the family jokes. We're supposed to have lunch with extended family tomorrow, and the only reason I'm going is because I only see these family members maybe once a year. I don't want to see Jack or really anyone else from my immediate family. So do I have a right to be upset? Or am I being overly sensitive in this moment? What should I do? Before we go any further, the original poster has an update to the story they just shared. Here's what they had to say. Okay, before I talk about the lunch that we had, I'll share what happened to the bridal party, as it becomes relevant why Phil didn't come. The bridal party was hit by a pickup truck right outside the venue. The truck was going 55 and the girls were stopped. Both vehicles were totaled, but they were adamant to go on with the ceremony and get checked out later. So Phil took his wife to the hospital today, and thankfully there were no major injuries. But now on to the lunch. My wife sat down with the families and we were all chatting. At one point, my uncle goes, "Phil's speech was really sweet. I couldn't have given that without crying." And my mom says, "Well, yeah, he had something prepared because he practiced it with me and he changed it after the wreck." Jack then piped up and said, "Hey, I had a good speech too." But then my dad chimes in and says, "Yeah, it was a good speech, but it was all about your older brother." Now at that point, I just got angry. I then said to them, "I thought it was weird that it was so focused on someone who wasn't even involved in the wedding." Jack and my dad then got quiet and then just continued their conversations with the people next to them. I avoided eye contact with Jack, and then we left after 15 minutes. My wife and I then went home, and we just proceeded to relax since we're finally getting a break from our students. And for reference, we teach upper elementary school. Jack then tried to call me once, but I just let it ring. He didn't even leave me a voicemail. Then about an hour later, my grandma called me asking how lunch was, and she could tell that I was upset in my voice. When she asked what's wrong, I told her about being upset with Jack, and she said to me, "Well, I don't think your brother meant it." And I just said, "Well, then why did he bring it up? This is all the time." And then everyone wonders why my wife and I don't come around as often, or why we leave early at events. I'm tired of it. She was really calm and just said to me, "Well, your brother can't give a speech and he thinks he's funny, but he can't make jokes without insulting someone. Have you told him and your parents about how you feel?" I said yes, and that it hasn't changed for years. She then just says, "Well, y'all are just gonna have to work this out." I told her that I don't want to talk to him right now, and she goes on to say that she knows and that she understands. So that's where we're at the moment, because this entire situation is incredibly frustrating. Wow, Jack is a massive piece of garbage. This guy was making fun of you at your brother's wedding. Like literally, the best man speech is not supposed to be about you. You're not the one getting married. Like this guy's an idiot. I also cannot stand the fact that this all just goes unchecked by anybody else. Like if people really feel this way about Jack and his stupid jokes, then why is nobody coming to your defense? Are they that afraid of Jack's reaction? Because in my opinion, they would rather sacrifice your happiness just so they can keep Jack off of their back. Like I really think that's what's going on right now, because Jack clearly needs some kind of target to like bully and make fun of. And in my opinion, I think the rest of the family is just relieved that it's not them. So they say nothing and let this kind of garbage happen left and right. So personally, I would be like, yeah, you're all in on it. You're all terrible people for letting this happen. And the fact that nobody is calling this guy out on his BS, in my opinion, is incredibly toxic. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my father out financially and potentially leaving him homeless in the future? Because because right now I feel really guilty and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so growing up, my parents got divorced when I was 13 years old. It was a tough time for everybody, but I almost exclusively lived with my mom, with some visits from my father throughout the years. And I did this until I was 18 and moved to go to university. My father offered to pay some of the residence fees at the university, but my tuition was already covered by a scholarship that I took. During my second year at university, I found out that he had paid for about 3 months worth of fees and then just let the debt accumulate. So I got a letter of reprimand saying that I would be thrown out of residence if I didn't have the money within a month. Now, I don't believe that I was entitled to have my residence paid for at all. However, I was entitled to know when my father stopped paying so that I could plan or pick up extra work to afford a place to stay. I had asked my mom to bail me out, but I paid her back with interest when I started working after university. Fast forward some years, and as soon as I got a job, my father started asking for money from me. I didn't mind because the amounts weren't large, and I was prepared to sacrifice the money. But over the 5 years, the amount of money that I have sacrificed was most of mine and my fiance's savings. So I cut my father off, saying that I was not willing to give him any more money. He subsequently moved in with friends of his because he has not got a job, and from what I've heard, he has developed a problem with drinking. Well, these friends called me directly and said that I need to let my father move in with me because he is not their family and they are sick of having him around. They then went on to say that if I don't take him in, then they will leave him on the street. And this has caused me a lot of anxiety and pain because on one hand, I don't believe I'm responsible for my father's choices, but on the other, he never mistreated me growing up, besides some lies about university fees and other times that I just won't get into. I feel sick to my stomach letting somebody live on the streets. I am an only child, and my father has broken the trust of basically his entire family. For reference, I was not the only person he took a large sum of money from, so I am effectively his last resort, but I am still sticking to my decision of not letting him move in, especially for the sanity and strength of mine and my fiance's relationship, and for my own well-being. So am I the jerk for not helping my father out? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, it is not your job to bail this guy out. The fact that he doesn't have a job and that he's not working honestly falls on his shoulders and nobody else. And it's also really suspicious to me that the friends called you directly and they're like, you've got to pick up your father or else he's going to be homeless, because that just doesn't sound completely truthful. It sounds like the dad set them up to say that, and they're only delivering that message on his behalf as some kind of guilt-tripping tactic because he knows that you'll shut him down the second he asks you. So no, you're definitely not the jerk here, because everything your father's going through right now is quite literally his own fault. Am I the jerk for canceling a trip all because my friend stopped replying and has literally just ghosted me the second I told him what our plans were? Because right now I'm really confused and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female and I have this friend who we will call Brad. I've known him since middle school, but didn't really talk with one another. After college, we met and dated for a few months, but then I broke up with him due to the both of us not being ready for a relationship. Because at the time, I just got out of a 5-year relationship, with him just getting out of a 10-year relationship. And at this point, I don't really initiate the text messaging anymore. Usually, he'll hit me up after every few months or every few years, and then we'll start talking for a few months. Well, recently, he just got over a horrible relationship, and he was on the deep end. And me, being someone who's been on that thin line before, reached out to him to try and help him out. And it was then that I offered to go on a trip to Oregon and see my dad, and he was very excited about it at first. I offered this, by the way, because he was having so much trouble at home, and his mind was very cloudy. So basically, I just wanted to help him out. Well, I wanted to buy the tickets to fly to him and get a rental car, which would basically be from Florida to Arizona. So I messaged him if he still wanted to go, and he said, of course. I then messaged him with stuff that we could do and places to stop along the way, and he just didn't reply. And at the time, that was honestly not a big deal. He has been doing that really often lately, so I didn't think much of it. Well, I waited a day, and then I texted him the dates and how long we'll be gone for, but he didn't reply. So I held off on buying the tickets, and I waited another day, and I sent him a message if he was okay, and I still didn't get a reply. Like I said before, he has been kind of distant. Even when I had trouble in my life and tried to talk to him, he was just never there. And he definitely doesn't owe me anything, and he definitely doesn't have to be just because I was. I honestly just felt bad for him. Anyways, I waited 4 days, and later that night, I sent him a text saying that I was holding off on buying the tickets and that I might just go alone since I have to take this trip. The trip is coming up so soon. It's in about a month, and if I was going to drive from Arizona up California to Oregon, I needed about a month of planning. And I also texted him that I was confused on what happened. Now, did I bombard him with texting every day? Sometimes I just messaged him by saying, hey, I hope you're doing okay, because he's told me some dark and really concerning stuff, and I told him that I care for him and that he is my friend. So when I see him changing his Facebook to all black and disabling all of his other accounts, it's honestly really concerning to me. So am I the jerk for trying too hard in this situation? But also, why is he messaging me every couple of months to rekindle our friendship? Like, why did he agree to go on this trip in the first place? He was the one who asked me for the dates and the plans, and when I did that, he just didn't reply. What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because the way this guy's leading you on, in my opinion, is completely inappropriate. Like, this is not a good friend. This is someone who's coming back to you and basically trying to like rekindle something, even though he knows it's not gonna work out. And the fact that he ghosted you after you were like, hey, let's look at days in which we can travel, like that is really weird, and that's just so inappropriate. So no, you're not the jerk in this scenario, and if I was in your shoes, I would have done the exact same thing. Am I the jerk for refusing to help my brother pay off his debt after he tried to publicly shame me for not giving him well over $3,000? Because right now, I'm incredibly annoyed, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 19-year-old female, and I started a new job recently where I saved up quite a bit of money over the past year. My family was proud of me, but my older brother, who's 25 years old, immediately started making comments by saying stuff like, you're finally rolling in cash, so I guess you can help your family now. He has always been bad with money, mostly from wasting it on gambling and unnecessary purchases. Well, last week, he asked me for $3,000 to help pay off his credit card debt. He said he needed it to avoid getting into more trouble, but I told him no, because I've seen how he handles money, and I don't trust him to use it wisely. Well, he got mad and called me selfish, saying I was being unfair since I don't have any big expenses right now. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, he went on social media and posted a rant about how I was hoarding money while my own family struggled. He even called me a bad sister for refusing to help out. And now some family members are saying that I should just lend him the money to avoid more drama. But I do not think that I should have to pay for his mistakes. So am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk for not bailing your brother out. This guy's an idiot for acting like, oh yeah, you've got some money now. Looks like I can get a piece of that. Now you can get me out of credit card debt. It's like, no, that's not happening. What are you talking about? Just because you saved up a lot of money doesn't mean it's meant for the family all of a sudden. Just because this guy's a moron when it comes to saving his own money doesn't mean that you now have to bail him out. So no, you're not the jerk, because the things this guy was demanding, in my opinion, are completely out of line. My entitled boss demands that I follow every procedure that we have at our company, claiming that I can't make any mistakes. So I decide to maliciously comply, showing him once and for all how stupid this policy is. Here's what happened. So I work at a company that prides itself on having a detailed, overly complicated policy manual for everything. We've got rules for rules, basically. My manager, let's call him Dave, is the kind of guy who loves micromanaging. He would constantly hover over our shoulders, pointing out every tiny mistake we made, saying to us, if it's in the manual, you must follow it. Well, one day, Dave sent me an urgent email asking me to finish a big project before the end of the day. Normally, I do it my usual way, efficiently and with a bit of common sense. But Dave insisted that I strictly adhere to the manual, since according to him, it was a high visibility project and he did not want any mistakes. Well, Dave, this is something that you definitely should not have asked from me. I pulled out the manual and went full compliance mode. For starters, every procedure, no matter how small, was followed to the letter. Normally, I'd skip pointless steps, like writing a detailed log for every 10-minute task. But not this time. I logged everything. Did I start a document or save the file, or even change the font size? Well, if I did, guess what? I'm gonna log it. Also, it's super important that I request for approvals. The manual says certain steps need managerial sign-off, so I emailed Dave at least 5 times throughout the day for approvals. I would say something like, hey Dave, just confirming font size 12 is acceptable, right? Please reply so I can continue. And I did this about literally everything. Also, breaks were strictly enforced. Policy states that we get 2 15-minute breaks, as well as a 1-hour lunch. Normally, I'd work through a bit of lunch to get things done, but not today. At 12 o'clock sharp, I dropped everything and I left my desk. I also spent 15 minutes at exactly 10 o'clock and 3 o'clock just resting. Also, every department had to be involved. The manual said I needed sign-offs from IT, human resources, and marketing for certain sections, even though they had nothing to do with the project. I looped them in with formal requests, dragging out this timeline completely. By the end of the day, the project wasn't finished. I spent so much time complying with the manual that I didn't even get halfway through it. Well, as you can probably guess, Dave was furious, and he asked me why it wasn't done. So I calmly explained that I followed every single policy and procedure in the manual, just like he instructed me to do. I even showed him the email chain proving that he he had approved my steps. Well, after I did that, Dave stopped breathing down my neck and started letting me work how I wanted. So honestly, I think he learned his lesson, because sometimes the best way to fix a broken system is to show exactly how broken it truly is. This is brilliant because honestly, I hate people who micromanage. If I've got a job that I'm doing and I know how to do this job, I don't need anybody breathing down my neck to make sure I get it done, because that's literally just going to hinder my process and it's going to make this harder for me overall. So the fact that you whipped out the manual and did this to the letter of the law and said, hey, I'm going to follow every single step, even if it's stupid and something mundane, guess what? I'm still going to do it. Like, that is absolutely brilliant and so funny to me, because Dave deserved this. Dave seems like one of those people who loves pointing out people's mistakes, and so being a manager over people where he gets to point things out all the time is probably something he loves to do every single day. So getting back at him by maliciously complying to everything that he said, in my opinion, was absolutely necessary. Am I the jerk for calling my mom out in front of the entire family after she tried to claim that she was the reason that I got into college? Because right now my entire family's upset with me, and at this point I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a 16-year-old female, and I graduated early, and recently I started college. The reason I'm already in college is that my mother pulled me out of public school when she found out that I was gay. She enrolled me in a homeschool program, which allowed me to work at my own pace. And if you're not familiar with it, the program I was a part of is an absolute joke. From the moment I got pulled out of school, I dedicated myself to getting into college. And this was mostly just to get me out of the house. I taught myself almost all of my education. The only official classes I've taken are Algebra 1, English 1, Civics, and Honor Science. This means I had a lot of gaps to fill. Now, just to make this clear, my mother didn't help me study. Her exact words were to say, you have a laptop, you have the answers right at your fingertips. So I got a job the day I turned 15 years old, and I've been working for about a year now. I managed to save $9,000 to set myself up for college. I applied to college by myself, passed all the entrance exams by myself, and paid for my first semester by myself. And my dad has also given me $10,000, which I have not even touched. I decided that I'm going to save it in case my money or my scholarships are not enough. Well, recently, my mother has been telling our family members about how I got into college and how she's been helping me, claiming that what she did for me was the best thing ever. And this drives me crazy because none of this is true. But at our family reunion, I had had enough and I corrected her. I told everyone that the only thing she did for me was drive me to work when my dad couldn't and take me to one entrance exam. Well, when I said this, my mom got super mad at me, saying she paid for my homeschooling. However, I paid for the homeschooling program with my savings, and my mom paid me back over 3 months. My mom also claimed that since the savings account I used was in her name, and there was $300 left when I got access to it, that means that she helped me just as much as my dad. To clarify, my dad doesn't make more money than my mom. In fact, he makes less, but makes better financial decisions, like not buying a brand new car or a house right after the divorce, which my mom absolutely did, by the way. I don't agree that my mom has helped me at all, but some family members think that I was the jerk for calling her out at the family reunion. My dad and brother think that I'm right for not letting her twist the situation just to make herself look like a great parent. So am I the jerk for calling out my mom in front of the entire family? Because right now I'm still incredibly frustrated. No, you're not the jerk at all. This absolutely needed to be corrected because what your mom is spewing right now is straight garbage. She didn't help you study. She literally threw you to the wolves and said, here you go, have fun. Like, that is crazy and that is so unacceptable. It's also so awful that she would try to use you to look good in front of her family. Like, she's really trying to sit there and be like, wow, look what I did for my daughter. She did all of this because of me. It's like, no, you didn't. You didn't even help her study. You quite literally said, okay, here's a laptop, find out the answers, you can do it. And the fact that she pulled you out of school just because you're gay, like, that is so awful. I can't believe she would do that to you. So to me, it really makes sense why you want to get out of her house, because your mom sounds like an awful person. An entitled Karen walks into our store at the last possible second, as she then walks down every single aisle of our grocery store, taking as much time as possible in shopping for her items. And despite the fact that she was shopping after hours when we were literally closed, she still refused to hurry up, demanding that we keep the store open until she is finished shopping. And I've truly never been more annoyed by anybody in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was working at a grocery store, and this was some years ago. I was working the late closing shift from 4 p.m. till 11 o'clock p.m., and our store closes at 11. At around 10:50 p.m., a lady with a typical Karen haircut, as well as some purple hair color, walks into the store and grabs a shopping cart, and walks into the opposite end of the store with the meat fridges and the freezers. stores. I start the closing routine and I don't think much of it. The time hits 11 and I finish my routines, and this lady is still standing there in the exact same spot. So I go to her to tell her the store is closed, but before I even get a single word in, she says to me, "I know the store is closed. I know you want to go home. I've worked in a store before, you know." And I tried responding back to her, but she said to me, "Listen, I've worked in a store before. You always let the customer finish shopping." And then she started rambling incomprehensibly. The time then hits 5 past 11 and she finally starts moving, but she was swerving between freezers and not grabbing anything. On the way to the cash register, she suddenly takes a sharp right turn to look at something, and the entire time she is rambling to me about something. But at this point, I was spacing out and just following her to make sure that she leaves the store. Finally, at 11:12, she makes it to the register and my colleague scans her items. Then she realizes she forgot something and is about to go grab it, but before she does, I say to her, "Oh, don't worry, I'll grab it for you." So I ran off to grab it before she would. I then return with the item and my colleague scans it through. She then asked us about cigarettes. And for reference, the store uses an electronic safe that you pay for a ticket you scan, and then the item drops like a vending machine. While tapping the screen in front of the register, my colleague explains that whatever cigarettes she wanted, we were completely out of. After that, she lets out a scoff and proceeds to look for her wallet in her purse. After rummaging for what felt like forever, she finds the wallet, pays and packs her stuff in a bag, and heads out for the exit. I follow her so I can lock the door, but she notices some National Day flower bouquets by the exit and is about to stop to look at them when she probably noticed me rolling my eyes, and then she finally left. The time at this point was around 11:23 p.m. and my colleague still needed to finish counting the till. Now, the entire time from when I first walked up to the lady and until she left, she was rambling about stores and how she worked in one, and how she definitely knows how it is, and all this other stuff. But truly, lady, if you know, then please leave and just go home, because your presence is truly a nuisance. When I worked in retail, I literally could not stand when people would do this. They walk in at the last second, and then they have the audacity to stay there for minutes after closing. Like, truly, I get it. Sometimes you can't get to the store until later, but for anybody to come in right when you're closing and then stay past the closing time, like, that is so annoying and so unacceptable. Because seriously, the original poster and the rest of their colleagues most likely worked a long day dealing with idiotic customers like this lady. So the fact that she tried to say, "Oh, I know how it is, I used to work in stores," but then also chooses to take her time and not hurry up, in my opinion, is incredibly frustrating and very rude. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. For the first time ever, the cops in my mall actually did something amazing, as I watched them take down a shoplifter in a way that I will never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so I used to be a manager for a fairly large CD and DVD store back in 2010, and this store was right next to an anchor store. And for those who don't know, the anchor stores are the very large stores at the ends of the mall. Our store took up about the same amount of space of about 3 to 4 small stores in the mall and had an entirely glass front, minus 2 large open doors that had the slide-down grates for closing. The glass front gave us a perfect view of what was going on in the mall when it was slow, which was the case on this particular Sunday evening about 30 minutes before closing. I generally set myself up at the front of the store, sorting new product on a cart and looking outward into the mall. That way I can greet anybody who might come inside. My employees were finishing up closing duties, so we could close the registers and get out the door as fast as possible. Now, this particular mall had the usual security guards, who tended to be the guys who fell into 2 different categories. Category A were the young guys who really wanted to be cops, but probably failed because of psychological evaluations and were a little bit too excited to catch shoplifters. And Category B were the older guys, who probably used to be cops and just wanted everything to be safe for everyone in the mall. And on weekends, we had a few cops that patrolled the mall. As employees, we did occasionally need to call security, and we had good relationships with the security teams, as well as the loss prevention team at the anchor store right next to us. We also used to think that the cops that pulled mall patrol detail were probably just bad at their jobs. But oh, how silly we were to think that. As I was sorting CDs and hoping for a fast exit that night, all of a sudden, I saw a woman with a stroller racing out of the anchor store just as fast as she could. But quickly in pursuit was one of the cops, who we will call Bob for the sake of the story, who is one of our favorite loss prevention guys from this anchor store. Before I could even yell back for my employees to see the show, this incident really popped off in a way that I didn't expect. This cop actually made a flying tackle on the woman. He landed on her back and slid with her almost 10 feet across the nicely waxed tiles, all while the stroller went flying, and he had both her hands behind her back and handcuffed before the two of them slid to a stop. Now, before anybody worries, the stroller crashed and spilled all of its contents with not a baby in sight, but instead it was probably a few $1,000s worth of prom dresses and jewelry, which also slid across the nicely waxed tiles. Bob skidded to a stop by the stroller and began collecting the items and apparently sorting through the items to determine which ones were owned by the anchor store and which were probably the property of other stores that she had been stealing from, just so they could be returned. Eventually, one of the young mall security guards strolled up from the other direction. He saluted me and said, "It's okay, we've got it taken care of." And I'm honestly still impressed because for the first time, the cops in our mall actually did something that was quite amazing. Yeah, that's really cool when you see someone do their job and they do it well. I know I've worked at malls before, and trust me, some of these security people absolutely suck at their job. They're there just for a paycheck and they don't actually care if anything goes wrong. But these guys were not that. Like, these guys were the John Wicks of like mall cops. And I really think that it's cool you got to see that in action, because I know if I was in your shoes, I would have a lot more confidence in these guys actually getting things done. My wife refuses to take her food allergy seriously, resulting in us constantly going to the hospital from having a negative reaction. But after this last incident, I finally had my breaking point, and I decided that I'm gonna kick my wife out of the house for a few days so that she can finally get it through her head that this is serious and that this is something that I need her to step up on. Here's what happened. Okay, so last night, my wife came home from work and pulled out a container of something I wasn't familiar with, and then she sat down to eat it. She works at a grocery store, so I normally don't think too much about it, but when I got a whiff of it, it smelled like crab salad. Now, for context, my wife has a pretty intense allergy to green and red onions, but she is fine with yellow and white onions. Now, in America, we do have ingredients listed on the package, which is required by law. However, companies are allowed to be vague with certain ingredients, and onions are one of those. Normally, if I spot onions listed as an ingredient, then it is a hard pass for me. I don't even chance it. But my wife, however, doesn't do this. Now, back to last night. I got up and asked to see the container, which was half gone at this point, and I read the ingredients. And wouldn't you know it, onions were listed plain as day towards the top of the ingredients. I asked her if she'd bothered to read the ingredients, and she said that she did, but she assumed that they were the safe ones. At this point, I grabbed the EpiPen from her purse, and I kept it close by. Now, I was upset at her because I used to work in a kitchen, and I know well that green onions and seafood are almost inseparable in those salads. But I kept a calm demeanor and I just watched her. Well, within a few minutes, she started having a reaction. At first, I wanted to give her the EpiPen because she had eaten so much of it, but she refused and said she would just take some Benadryl and lie down on the couch. Eventually, though, she needed to be given the EpiPen, and I drove her to the hospital. And it's important to keep in mind, this is taking place at midnight and I have work at 8 o'clock in the morning. We get to the ER and they admit her. They tell me that she needs to stay overnight for observation because of how severe her reaction is. And I then talk to my wife about it. We know the staff here pretty well, and I know she is in good hands, so I check with her to see if she would be okay if I went home to get some sleep before work. Now, she said it would be totally fine. However, as I was leaving, I chose to call her mom and ask if my wife could spend the next couple of days at her house. You see, I was furious with her at this moment because I felt like I'm the only one who takes the allergy seriously, and I am not the only one who will literally die if I eat the wrong onions. And this isn't the first time that she's been careless and ended up needing to go to the hospital because she had a reaction. There have been many times before where she ate first and asked questions later, and it frustrates me to no end that she doesn't take it seriously enough to take just a few moments to read the ingredients and just avoid onions that she cannot plainly identify. So, since I wasn't getting through to her, and the hospital visits seemed to be ignored as well, I decided that making her stay at my mother's for a few days might send the message. I got home and packed her a suitcase for the next few days, and when I got the call that she was being discharged at 7 this morning, I picked her up and I drove her to her mom's house. I told her as I was dropping her off that this wasn't permanent, but I needed a couple days to cool down, and she needed to be monitored anyways since she just got out of the hospital. So this was the best course of action. Well, when I did this, she cried a lot. She begged me to take her home instead, but I refused to budge. Her mom brought her inside, and I told her that I would be blocking my wife's calls for the day while at work. So if there was an emergency, then her mom would have to be the one to get a hold of me. Her mom agreed with me and told me that this was probably the best idea since she was also just as frustrated with her daughter, as she seemed to not take any of this seriously. So here I am at work feeling like I might be overreacting by kicking her out for the next few days. So am I at fault in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're overreacting in the slightest. Your wife is literally not taking care of herself. She's being careless and reckless in what she's eating, and that is not only incredibly irresponsible, but not fair for you. Like, for reference, this lady is in her 30s. She is more more than old enough to read the ingredients on a listing of some kind of food. And from the sounds of it, this is a life-threatening allergy. So why would she not be more attentive to what she should and shouldn't eat? Like, this is just careless, reckless, and incredibly irresponsible. And the fact that she's not taking care of herself in this way is just so disappointing. So no, you're not overreacting by kicking her out, because this is a message that she needs to take seriously. Because one day she's going to be by herself and this is going to happen. And I'm willing to assume that the worst would happen to her if you weren't around to try and save her life. Am I the jerk for changing my name and not telling my father about it? Especially since my father and I shared the same name. Because after spending a lifetime of dealing with my lousy father, I decided that I don't want his name attached to me any longer. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I was named after my father. I have a sister that is 11 months older than me, and my father walked out when I was only 6 months old. He popped up every once in a while until he came to live with us, and then he left again when my mom got sick, and then started raising someone else's children. He was a real parent to them, despite being the whole children are meant to be seen and not heard type of person. My sister and I were included in things with the other kids at the request of my stepmother, but it still felt like he wasn't my dad. I accepted the other children as extra siblings, and they accepted me and my sister as well. My stepmother cared for us as her own when we visited, and I loved them all. Well, my father ended up leaving again and getting with a different woman, and still for years never made an attempt to mend things with me. He would call to tell me happy birthday, but never on my birthday, and I never corrected him either. I felt like I shouldn't have to correct him because he was there when I was born. My sister was the one who reached out to him and has forgiven him and allows him to be in my niece and nephew's lives. Now, I don't have kids yet, but I don't want him around me or my family. I really feel like he doesn't deserve it. In recent conversation, he asked if I was going to continue the carrying of our name, and I just laughed a bit and I said, oh, I don't know, maybe. But on the inside, I felt very uncomfortable about that question, and I actually brought it up to my wife. She feels the same way that I do. She knows everything about my experiences with him and feels that he shouldn't have a chance to be a good grandfather to make up for being a lousy father. He put me through so much as a kid, and as much as I wanted him to go away, my mom wanted us to know him and to allow him to be a part of our lives. She didn't want us to grow up without a dad or calling someone else dad. She didn't know about any of what he did until I told her when I was 27 years old. She asked why I didn't like talking to him, and I told her everything that happened while she was at the doctor and dialysis. Well, she was mortified and called him up and yelled at him for an hour, but he actually just told her that if she wanted him to parent us in a certain way, then she's the one who should have said so. I thought a lot about what he had asked, and I came to the conclusion that I did not want to continue the name. I didn't want to pass on to my son the burden that is my father, and I also didn't want the name myself. So I went and I got it changed, and I never planned on telling my father. But when I brought it up to my sister, she got mad and started laying into me, yelling and asking how I could be so selfish and how it would make our father feel when he finds out. But I yelled back at her, asking if she remembered what he had put us through as kids. After getting off the phone with her, I thought about what she said, and now I feel like I've made a mistake. So am I the jerk for changing my name and not telling my dad about it? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Your dad doesn't sound like a winner in the slightest, and it really seems like he not only neglected you, but he's also not sorry that he did it. Like, seriously, what kind of response was that to your mom? He said to her, oh yeah, if you wanted me to raise them a certain way, then you should have said something. But like, seriously, wouldn't loving your kids be something that you would do like automatically? This guy literally abandoned you multiple times. He was a lousy father, and now he wants you to continue his name for selfish reasons. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk for changing your name, because at the end of the day, this is your decision and not his. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my part of an apartment for a vacation that I couldn't go on? Because right now, my friends, despite having 2 months notice to change their reservations, are literally blaming me for having to pay hundreds of dollars extra per person just to stay in their accommodation. And at this point, I'm so frustrated that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and back in July, I was supposed to take a trip to Ibiza with my friends. This trip had been planned since February of this year, and the entire time that it was planned, I felt kind of left out. It really looked like they were trying to get me to not go, either by booking the most expensive flights or by not listening to anything I had to say. And this is despite the fact that I'm the only one who speaks Spanish, as well as the only one who understood the descriptions and locations of the hotels and apartments they were looking at. We finally decided on an apartment, which wasn't cheap, but it was doable, and paid for the flight. It's important to note that we didn't have to pay in advance, and there was no cancellation fees until 4 days before departure, and this was booked using one of my friend's accounts. Fast forward to April, and I got a call back for a job I really wanted, and I was due to start working on May 3rd. So this meant I was probably unable to attend this summer trip. So I told my friends in advance that there was the possibility I couldn't go. Well, as soon as I started working my job, my manager confirmed that I would not be able to mature enough vacation days to be able to go. So I told my friends. I offered to help them find someone to replace me and told them to text me if they needed anything, such as finding a new place to stay, as we could cancel the booking and not pay any fees. Now, when I said this to all of them, none of them looked or acted disappointed that I couldn't go. In fact, they didn't even answer my text message. Fast forward to July 1st, which is the day the free cancellation expired. My friends finally texted me saying they tried to ask around a bit, but no one could join them and take my place. So, thinking that they cared for me and understood my situation, I offered to try and help with the money for the apartment, which I know was a mistake on my part, but I honestly thought they would have done the same for me if I was in their situation. Well, they asked me to pay for the entirety of my share, which I did not find right, as I had given them 2 months notice. Plus, we did not have to give any deposit, and they had 2 months to cancel and book somewhere else. In the end, they ended up paying 100 extra euros per person for the apartment. They then texted me in late August just to tell me how I had broken an almost 10-year-old friendship and that I didn't have any respect for their money. After that, I completely cut ties with them, but some of our old friend group sided with them and keeps telling me that I'm the jerk and that it was my responsibility to help them out. So seriously, am I at fault in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, you're not the jerk here. These people suck. You mean to tell me that your friends were so lazy that they didn't think to cancel the booking ahead of time and try to find anything else after you told them you couldn't go? Seriously, what is going on right now? That is so stupid, it's not even funny. And you even offered to help them out. You told them explicitly, hey, I'll help you find someone to replace my spot if you really want me to, while even offering to help them find another place to stay, since it would be extra for them to stay there without your involvement. But what do they do instead? Oh, I don't know. They try to pin this on you and be like, wow, I can't believe you did this. We have to pay extra now and it's your fault. But it's no, stupid, this is your fault. These people didn't take the initiative to get any of this done. And because of that, they're trying to use you as a scapegoat for some stupid reason. So no, you're definitely not the jerk, because this is just insane behavior. And if your friends really want to cut you off because of their dumb decisions, then honestly, it's probably for the best, because these supposed friends don't sound like very good people in the first place. Am I the jerk for not letting my parents stay in my college accommodation after they basically invited themselves over without asking me first? Because right now, after a big fight, I'm starting to feel really guilty, and at this point, I don't know what to do. Okay, so I go to college in a city that's relatively close by, and during the week I stay in a house with 4 others, and then I come home for the weekends. My parents pay for my rent and give me a bit of spending money for the week. I also have a job, so they don't give me all of my spending money. When I started college a few months ago, my mom suggested that they could stay in my house if they wanted to visit my city that I'm staying in, instead of paying for a hotel for the weekend. Now, for reference, I don't live in a particularly nice city, so not having to pay for a hotel is pretty much the only attraction. Well, I made it clear back then that I was not okay with that. I didn't say it to them, but my main reason for this is that I don't want them in my bed. Fast forward to today, when my mom told me that she booked a dinner in a restaurant in my city for a couple of weekends from now, and that she planned for her and my dad to stay in my house. I reminded her that I said I wasn't okay with that, and she said that she thought I would change my mind by now. Now, I think that assuming that without asking me first is a pretty entitled thing to do, and making the booking without asking me is completely her own fault. The list of reasons why I wouldn't want them there has actually grown since the last time we talked about it. Like I said, I don't want them in my bed, but also at least one of my roommates stays in the house some weekends, and I don't really want them interacting. Also, the walls are thin, and my bed squeaks a lot, which brings me back to the first point. Also, I don't want them looking through my fridge and seeing how little food I have, as they've been worried that I haven't been eating enough, which is kind of true. I told them that I always eat a good breakfast, when most days I don't eat breakfast at all. And trust me, they're going to be nagging me about this for the next 4 years. Also, I just feel that giving them unrestricted access to the house is an invasion of mine and all of my roommates' privacy, even though we have nothing to hide. Anyways, we had a big fight about it, and then a little while later, my mom told me that if it bothers me that much, then they didn't have to go away for the weekend, and they would just cancel the dinner reservation and choose to go out in our hometown instead, which now I kind of feel bad about. But at the same time, I feel that I have valid reasons for not wanting them to stay in my house. And if they weren't paying my rent, I don't think they would have much of an argument to stay there at all. But in this case, they do, so that is a pretty big point in their favor. So am I at fault here? Because right now I am still incredibly annoyed. Now, I don't think you're the jerk at all because the way your parents are acting is so weird. First of all, if they really wanted to stay with you, then they should have asked you first instead of being like, oh yeah, we're coming over on this one weekend. I hope you're ready for us, and of course we didn't ask. Why would we? It's like, seriously, what are we doing right now? This is not fair for you in the slightest because it's putting you in a weird spot. If you lived alone, I might be a little more understanding of them being like, hey, I'm coming by, but it's the fact that you have roommates. Like that alone makes this incredibly inappropriate. So no, you are not the jerk in this situation because the way your parents are acting, in my opinion, is completely unacceptable. My entitled narcissistic mother is ruining my wedding before it even takes place, as she is once again making everything about her while also turning my entire family against me if I don't bend to her will. And now I feel like I'm at my breaking point because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so there is so much to this, and I really hope that this very condensed version makes even a little bit of sense to somebody. My longtime fiance and I have finally decided to make the step and get married. This has been in the works for all of 3 weeks, and it's already been an absolute nightmare due to my family. Long story short, my parents have been divorced for over 10 years, and it has been ugly ever since the beginning. For added context, very critical actions on my mom's part are what inevitably led to the divorce, and since then, the relationship between her and her older, now adult children has been extremely strained due to her actions and behavior, so I'll let that speak for itself. Now, due to the cost, our best option for a venue is my dad's house as a backyard event. While trying to put some feelers out to my mom's side of the family about the wedding, several family members made no effort to dance around their decision to straight up not attend if it was held at his house. Now, trying to make this work for everyone, we were able to find a different relative's home to act as the reception venue, and this seemed to get everyone on the same page of being willing to attend. But unfortunately, this is where the messiest part begins. My mom and I have not been on speaking terms for over a year. This stemmed from a situation like many others that she herself instigated and set off her full narcissistic tendencies. Despite not being on speaking terms, I've had several big life achievements this year and have attempted to include her in the conversation via a family group chat, including the decision to move forward with the wedding. She has never responded or participated in any of the messages that I have sent, including the wedding. With the wedding now in motion, I have family members telling me to reach out to her directly, that essentially she feels she deserves more from me than inclusion in a group chat despite not speaking to me for a year and not reciprocating the effort that I have offered through the open door of including her in the group chat. Her side of the family says they will not attend if she is not invited to the wedding, so I just caved and I directly texted her, reiterating once again that I have deliberately included her in these major life moments all year, and I've still not gotten a response. I reiterated that I understand she has her feelings, and I also have mine, but regardless, I'm still putting forward the effort that she is not reciprocating. Well, as you might guess, she didn't respond. Just like so many other times in my life, she has enabled so much turmoil and completely takes the joy away from something to celebrate. With her lack of response, I do anticipate her not willing to try to work things out with me just to try and attend my wedding, which also means I fully expect her side of the family to inevitably pull out of attending as well. I'm ready to pull the plug on the entire thing when so much of it has already become a fight within 3 weeks of planning. So am I overreacting and throwing myself a pity party, or would you also be upset in this situation? What should I do? Oh man, this situation sucks for so many reasons, but for me, it all begins and ends with the fact that your mom is an absolute piece of garbage. Once again, she's making everything about herself and trying to make you look like the bad guy. Like seriously, this is so uncalled for, it's not even funny. And it's also not fair. You're literally trying to reach out and extend an olive branch, and this lady is ignoring you and being like, well, I'm just not going to respond to you. And it's like, okay, well, this is your own fault. The original poster updated us and said that she finally did respond, but will only speak to the original poster if they go to her house and do it in person. And by the way, their mom lives 2.5 hours away from her. So the original poster decided to change the venue back to what it was originally, and they're literally just closing this chapter and moving on with their lives. So truly, they made the absolute best decision in this scenario, and I don't blame them for doing what's best for them and their wedding. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I messed up by breaking an Italian man's pasta machine in a cooking class, and I honestly feel terrible and I'm not sure what to do. Here's what happened. So I was in a fresh pasta cooking course, which was in 2 sessions, and this was the second one. And our Italian teacher had gotten some bad feedback on last session's cleaning from the school. I felt bad that he got the complaints for our sloppy mess, so this time I wanted to be extra helpful. We were getting ready to eat and some people started to clean. Now the teacher had brought his own very old metallic colored pasta machine, and I was the only one of the attendees that had brought his own. My spouse had bought it for me. It was a beautiful red one. Like this thing was a Ferrari, the same Atlas brand as the old one. Pasta machines have a tightening torque at the bottom, which attaches them to the table so that the machine stays still while you spin the crank. So I had to attach my machine, which has a very bulky torque that you can tighten very tightly, and I went to the other side of the table to take off the teacher's machine. That way he wouldn't have to do it himself. Well, somehow I forgot which way the torque in general was supposed to go, and for the most part, it has to be turned in order to open them up, and somehow I managed to tighten it even more. So I realized it and I switched the other way around, and with a little bit more force applied, part of the bracket came off. I went to tell our typical Italian teacher man, and he said to me that I am a brutal man, asking me what I had done, and he then went to do the same and managed to clip off the other part of the bracket. After that, he got brutal and just pulled the machine off the table with some force. Well, when this happened, I immediately apologized, and he stared at me and the machine in a little bit of disbelief, and with shock on his face, he said to me, "Well, I have your address and email," and before he could continue, I jumped in and said, "Yes, so you can send me the bill." And yes, he was nice about it, and we joked about it afterwards, but the machine was really old, so it probably had some kind of sentimental value. But honestly, oh well. I'm going to his other cooking class next week, and he said he likes Lamborghinis more than Ferraris. So now I told him I'll park one for him, because truly I messed up, and the least I can do is try to replace it. Yeah, this is a good example of maybe you did just a little bit too much to help out, and instead of actually helping out, you broke something that probably really did mean something to this guy. But thankfully, this guy does seem to have a good sense of humor, and he did take this in stride, because man, if this really was some kind of like family heirloom, this could have been a much different story. My boyfriend's sister resents me and my boyfriend for all the money that we have, and now this is causing massive fights between the two of them, leaving me stuck in the middle, unsure what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I've been with my boyfriend for a year and a half. We are both employed and we earn steady salaries. When it comes to paying for anything, we usually just split it down the middle. I've never asked my boyfriend to ever pay for anything for me. If he has ever paid for something just for me, it's because he insisted to do so, and that happens between the both of us, vice versa. Now, my boyfriend's sister is unemployed, as she was recently let go from her job. I've always gotten along with her fine. I've gotten her Christmas and birthday presents, and I've never had an argument with her. She also does not have a driver's license, and honestly, I don't know why. She has no major disabilities or any kind of setback. Now, I have a car, a license, and I pay for my own petrol. I also drive regularly. My boyfriend drives me around if he wants to, but I have never asked him to, because I can drive myself, so I have no need. My boyfriend drives his sister around and always asked her for petrol money, and this is maybe 100 Rand per week, and we are from South Africa, so our currency is Rands. Since she got let go from her job, she has started getting resentful about the petrol money. About 3 weeks ago, she hands over 30 Rand instead of 100. My boyfriend asked her where the rest is, and she responds by saying, "That's all I'm giving you because you drive your girlfriend around for free," which isn't even fair. My boyfriend then hit the roof and a major argument ensued. It turns out the sister has been snippy about my boyfriend not giving her spending money anymore, or even paying for her other bills, which honestly, I didn't even know he did until he started venting about the whole thing to me. And he did this because he's saving up for an engagement ring, and we are both saving up for a wedding. And this was just the final straw. And apparently, she's been snippy about that too, because she says that he's never gotten her anything nice like that before. I just said, "Okay, I can help you pay for the engagement ring." And he said to me, "No, I want to pay for it myself." Now, my boyfriend's parents can't support his sister anymore because they don't have a lot to begin with. So far, I have said nothing, and I have stayed out of it because I want to maintain a civil relationship with the sister. So I have not spoken to her about what she's been saying. And their parents kind of just shrug their shoulders and say, "Sort it out." So honestly, I'm not sure what to say to my boyfriend to try and help out, since he is at his breaking point with his sister. What should I do? Okay, honestly, I know the temptation here is to be like, "Oh man, I want to get involved. Is there something I can do or say to try and help this out? How can I be involved?" But honestly, in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would stay completely out of this. Like, this really does seem like a nightmare waiting to happen, and it seems like some kind of like family dispute that you just don't want to be involved with. Like, truly, this doesn't sound like a good time, and I would hate to be mixed up in the middle of this, because I'm willing to bet that your boyfriend knows better than anybody else that his sister is being very entitled. So I'm fairly certain to say that this is probably something that he can take care of on his own. Am I the jerk for refusing to go to my mother-in-law's house for dinner any longer after she started being so late and getting things ready that we now eat dinner at about 9 o'clock or even later, because right now I am incredibly frustrated. Here's what happened. Okay, so my mother-in-law has recently moved back to our hometown after finally escaping from her ex. My husband and I were unaware of the severity of the situation because my mother-in-law made efforts to hide it, and I know that my husband is feeling quite guilty about it, but my mother-in-law is doing better, and she has her own little apartment in town and has been working and rebuilding her life. We've made efforts to support her as much as possible, but we are in a tight spot financially, so what we can do is limited. For the past couple of weeks, my mother-in-law has been inviting us over to her place for dinner multiple times a week. She has always loved to cook and says that she is excited to get to cook for family again. Plus, she gets to spend time with our toddler. The problem is that she has consistently told us to be there at about 6 o'clock p.m., only for her to not have dinner ready until 9 o'clock or even later, and she refuses any help in the kitchen. Now, this is a major issue because we wind up staying out past our daughter's bedtime. Her whole nighttime routine gets thrown off, and it makes it harder to get down for bed, not to mention how cranky she gets waiting on the food. I've tried to gently talk to my mother-in-law about this, but she has always been critical of me and my parenting. She thinks it's outrageous that I keep my daughter on such a strict schedule and insists that when her kids were little, they didn't have schedules, and they just ate when they were hungry and fell asleep when they were tired, and it all worked out just fine. I asked my husband to talk to his mom about it, but she basically told him the same thing. But then she went off on him about how she was just trying to help us out financially by providing a few meals for us, and how terrible it was for us to try and make her feel bad for just wanting to spend time with her family. So he just dropped the subject, and we've been back to her place for dinner a couple more times since then, and it's still being served at about 9 o'clock p.m. And now she's also making passive-aggressive comments about how I need to loosen up and how I can't expect the world to stick to my schedule. Now, my husband thinks that we should just put up with it because his mom has been through so much, and he feels partially responsible because he was unaware of the situation and wasn't able to protect her. But after a particularly critical phone call with her yesterday, I told my husband that I didn't want to go to her place for dinner any longer. He insisted that she is just stressed because of everything she's been through, and we need to show her some leniency. But I told him that she can come over to our place for dinner every now and then, and that would be fine. But I am not going to be held captive at her apartment anymore. We didn't really come to an agreement though, and I'm thinking that maybe I'm being too harsh on my mother-in-law, and I'm making my husband's life miserable in the process. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. Like, this whole scenario is so annoying in my opinion, it's not even funny. For starters, the mother-in-law is not eating food until 9 o'clock p.m., and I bet that's exactly when your daughter's supposed to go to bed. The fact that she can't understand that and is somehow dismissing that and trying to justify her actions, in my opinion, is so toxic. Like, why should you show up at 6 o'clock and not eat your food until what, 9:30, 10 o'clock? All with her being like, no, I don't want any help in the kitchen. It's like, seriously, lady, I understand that you're stressed out and you're going through some stuff, but you're literally hindering my life. Like, this isn't fair for you at all. And sure, your husband feels guilty because he didn't know about his mom and all the stuff that she was going through, but guess what? That's not his fault. He didn't know about it because she kept it a secret. And I'm not blaming the mother-in-law for keeping it a secret. Like, I'm sure there's a lot of nuance and a lot of tough things that she went through, but in my opinion, there's no reason for your husband to beat himself up about something he did not know about. So truly, this is not your fault, and I don't blame you for speaking up, because this truly would get annoying very quickly, and I don't blame you for saying something in the first place. Am I the jerk for refusing to be responsible for my parents' dogs while they go away on vacation for over a week? Because their dogs are incredibly high maintenance, and they will disrupt my entire work week from the ground up. But despite the fact that I tried to explain this to my parents and tell them that this would not work with my schedule, my parents have now said that I'm being selfish and that I'm the jerk for not accommodating their anniversary. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old male, and I'm the oldest sibling of my parents. I got married this year, and I moved out to live with my now wife in May, but I only live about 15 minutes away from my parents. My 22-year-old brother is away in college, and he lives about 2 hours away by driving, and my 18-year-old sister also just went away to college herself several states away, and so my parents are now technically empty nesters. My parents also have 2 dogs who are very high maintenance. They are extremely active dogs that require 2 walks and runs at the park per day just to get all of their energy out, and they also go crazy when my mom is not home. When I've watched the dogs in the past, I can hardly get any sleep because the dogs are restless due to a change in their routine. In the past, when we have lived at home, it has not been much of a problem for us kids that live at home to pick up the slack with the dogs if my parents are out of town. But my parents are going on a vacation for their anniversary in January for a week, and they they've asked my brother and I to cover the responsibility of the dogs while they are gone. And this would involve one of us walking the dogs twice daily and staying overnight so that they don't get lonely or destroy anything. Now, because my brother lives 2 hours away at school, he can't realistically go to class and come and go home during the weekdays. So, given that, the weekdays would be completely on me. But here's the problem. I have a job that has an unpredictable schedule during the week. I might start early or end late on any given day, so it would be extremely hard for me to commit to the routine of walking the dogs twice a day. My wife and I also just got married, and she works night shifts as well as every other weekend. I don't want to leave my wife at home when she is home and go sleep at my parents' house just because of the dogs. I would basically not see her for almost a week because of her night shift schedule, and because she needs to sleep during the day, it just wouldn't allow her to come with me. And if she happens to be off over that weekend, then I do not want to be responsible for the dogs on the rare weekend that we are both available to do something together. Also, staying overnight at my parents' house would wreck my sleep schedule because the dogs would stay up all night due to the change in their routine. I told my parents this reasoning, and they actually told me that I was the jerk, all because they felt that I was looking for reasons to get out of this instead of trying to make it work for their anniversary. They then told me that I'm making this a bigger deal than it needs to be, but I find it ridiculous to ask me to leave my wife for a week just to stay at their house for the dogs. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, because it really sounds like those dogs are high maintenance. Like sure, you could probably make this work in some kind of way, but the way your parents are phrasing this, in my opinion, it kind of shows their hand in this situation. They know their dogs are obnoxious, and they just don't want to find someone else to put up with it. Because you definitely said the quiet part out loud. You know for a fact you don't want to do this, and they're trying to act like, oh, you're just trying to find reasons to not do this. And it's like, okay, well clearly you know you've got a problem that I don't want to solve. Also, the fact that your work schedule is kind of like all over the place, and your wife also works at night, for me is more than enough of a reason for you to be like, listen, I can't make this work. This literally is not going to work with my schedule, and my wife can't step up and do it because she's sleeping during the day. So personally, I don't think you're being selfish or the jerk at all. It's not selfish to be like, listen, I can't make this happen. This is disrupting my life and I literally have no time. Because I really believe that if anybody is being inconsiderate in this situation, in my opinion, I think it's the parents, and definitely not you or your wife. Am I the jerk for refusing to pay my ex-fiance's brother back for a dress that he bought me for a wedding that I just canceled? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of context, I got engaged in July to my long-term boyfriend, who we will call Matt. We were excited to start the next chapter of our lives, and so we started planning the wedding immediately. Money is tight, but I have been saving for my wedding, so many of the costs were coming out of my savings, with Matt chipping in where he can, which was absolutely fine as we were planning our future. Matt spoke to his brother, who we will call Tom, and he offered to pay for my reception dress. And in my culture, it's normal to have the white dress for the ceremony and then a traditional dress for the reception. Now, Tom has been living with me and my parents for a few months after he was kicked out of his place and then his uncle's. And it turns out that he was a peeping Tom, if you know what I mean. We took him in to try and help him get back on his feet, but since he moved in, he has just taken advantage of me entirely. He has taken my room while I sleep on the couch, and he often sleeps in, so I can't even go get changed till he gets out of my room. He also wrote off his car and started driving mine to work, meaning I had to travel to a coworker to catch a lift to my office, which is adding at least 2 hours a day to my commute. He also doesn't pay rent or contribute to the grocery bill at all. After my father got retrenched, these issues finally came to a head, and my father told Tom that it was ridiculous that I had to catch a ride with a coworker and that I get home late constantly, while he drives my car as he pleases. He stated that I will now drive my own car and he can Uber to work. Well, this resulted in Tom and Matt deciding to get a flat closer to Tom's work so they don't have to pay that much for Uber, and finally with that, Tom moved out in an amicable arrangement, or so I thought. I don't know what Tom told his family, but I started getting irate phone calls from Matt and Tom's family members asking me how dare I throw Tom out like that. After a lot of back and forth, we agreed that my parents and I would meet with the family members and Matt just to try and smooth everything out and clear the air. Except when the meeting came, Matt didn't pitch, and when I called to ask where he was, he stated he knew that we didn't throw him out, so it wasn't his problem. I couldn't believe this man that I wanted to marry couldn't be bothered to deal with his own family. The meeting didn't go well, with lots of shouting and accusation, and eventually enough was enough. With this on top of all the other issues I've had with them in the wedding planning process, I finally snapped and I called off the whole thing. I messaged Matt a couple of times since then, but he's pretty much ghosted ghosted me. Now, here's where I might be the jerk. Tom has messaged me today demanding that I pay him back for the dress in 4 days' time, but I told him no, and that he must take it up with Matt as I have just paid double the amount to cancel our wedding venue. Also, I don't have the dress yet, and as far as I know, he's the one that has it. So truly, am I the jerk in this situation for all the things that went down? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I need to say this really is insane. To start things out, honestly, Tom is a massive piece of garbage. He was taking your car and using it whenever he wanted, forcing you to go 2 hours out of your way just to get to work. Like seriously, how did that even happen in the first place? It is crazy to me that this was even allowed in the first place. The second anybody heard, oh wait, you're going 2 hours out of your way during your commute just to get to work? Like that is not gonna happen. I'm sorry, that's just not allowed. Also, this guy doesn't pay any money towards rent or the grocery bill. Like seriously, this is so annoying. So you mean to tell me that he was just some weirdo who lived rent-free in your house and was also taking your car for whatever he wanted? Like this guy's a grade A loser. Like seriously, how can anyone possibly defend that? So when Matt and Tom's family decides to be like, wow, you kicked him out, I can't believe it. It's almost like, wait a second, didn't you do the same thing? Like these people literally kicked him out for being a creep and a weirdo. And if you don't know what peeping Tom means, trust me, it's not something you want to be called. It basically means that this guy was looking places he definitely shouldn't when people weren't looking. So ignore the fact that you guys even let him in your house in the first place, but also the fact that Matt's like, well, this isn't really my problem, so I'm just gonna let you deal with it. Like seriously, that is a massive red flag, and I'm so glad that you called on to that, because this is how Matt truly is. In the face of controversy and some kind of confrontation, he's going to tuck his tail between his legs and run away. That's what you can expect from him, and honestly, that is so tragic. So no, you're not the jerk in this situation, because Matt is an absolute coward, and his family is really stupid. And the fact that anybody's believing Tom in this scenario, in my opinion, says a lot about these people. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you like Am I the Jerk, make sure to subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.